Chapter 1560. Taiqing Yunluan frowned and scolded softly. Who are you? How dare you barge into the competition of the Taiqing Empire? The old man chuckled. The Taiqing Empire? The descendants of the Taiqing Emperor. Haha. Each generation is worse than the last. Not even a level 1 deity has been born among his descendants. How dare you? Taiqing Yunluan's face turned cold as she slammed her palm on the table beside her. Barging into the Taiqing Empire and humiliating our empire. How dare you? Men, chase them out, Taiqing Yunluan ordered. The guards in the arena rushed over quickly, their blades sharp. Hold on, Suyu said. Taiqing Yunluan immediately signaled for the guards to be quiet and cast a puzzled look at Suyu. The old man and the group of mysterious youths he had brought with him were obviously not friendly. Sitting down slowly, Suyu sized up the old man and said, "The World Martial Arts Competition welcomes strong men from all over the world. Shouldn't you tell us where you are from?" The old man laughed. "I come from a hidden family, a descendant of the dragon race. These youths are my people. I heard that there are many heroes in the world, so we came to join the fun and see how many strong men there are in the world today." Hidden family? Many of the creatures pondered. When the God Realm collided with the Lost Nation, there were indeed many God Realm families who hid in the vast Blackwood forest and never cared about the world. However, this was the first time they had heard of a descendant of the dragon race. Deep in Suyu's pupils, a pale color flickered as he glanced at the old man and the group of youths. Under the soul eyes, their souls were different and nothing unusual could be seen. However, Suyu's heart palpitated just now, and he was extremely vigilant. When the old man appeared, the fragment of the World Annihilation Dragon's chain of rules moved. This was no coincidence. What was more coincidental was that Binghua Sangxing had sent a message with the soul fluorescence. There was only one sentence, a warning. The appearance of the soul fluorescence could only mean one thing: the destruction of the divine soul. If there was no accident, Binghua Sangxing had perished, and her divine soul had perished from the world. In this world, there were only two people who could prevent Binghua Sangxing's divine soul from escaping. One was Suyu, and the other was Yongye Qiuma. Yongye Qiuma might not even be able to protect himself, so there was only one person who could be killed: the mysterious old man in front. A descendant of the dragon race? Suyu's eyes were filled with a deep light. He could vaguely confirm that this person had a great relationship with the World Annihilation Dragon. Thinking back to the past, the World Annihilation Dragon had once used a reverse scale to transform into a young man to hunt him down. Suyu was even more certain now. However, compared to that young man, the old man in front of him was 100 times more terrifying. He was definitely not formed from a mere scale. What? You don't welcome us? Or could it be that all of you are just a motley crew? Do you think people like you are qualified to attack the ancient tomb? The old man looked around and sneered. These words were very successful in stirring up the emotions of the spectators and participants. Suyu muttered to himself for a moment. If he didn't allow them to participate, he would be showing weakness, and this competition would lose its purpose of inspiring everyone's courage. If he agreed, then they had come with ill intentions. After thinking for a while, Suyu slowly nodded. "Of course you are welcome. Please. Hee. You know what's good for you." The old man chuckled as he walked to the rostrum and occupied a seat. That seat was originally reserved for Binghua Sangxing. Taiqing Yunluan frowned. "Who allowed you to ascend the platform? You're not qualified to sit on this seat." The old man said indifferently. "To be precise, you are not qualified to sit on the same platform as me." Seeing that Taiqing Yunluan was about to argue again, Suyu secretly patted her arm, signaling her to be quiet. Taiqing Yunluan glanced at Suyu from the corner of her eye, her eyes full of anger. She didn't understand why Suyu had tolerated this person time and time again. Was there need to be afraid of a mere hidden family? The old man's presumptuous behavior had angered the crowd. How could he be so arrogant in front of Senior Su? Does he still have any respect for the Orthodox God Realm? Senior Su is really too much. So what if he is a descendant of the Dragon Clan? Why is he so lenient to them? What's wrong with Senior Su? Why is he so accommodating? Puzzled questions and resentful complaints filled the hearts of the people. They didn't understand why someone as powerful as Su Yu would tolerate a small hidden family. They didn't know that if Su Yu didn't choose to tolerate, the consequences would be unpredictable. "Let's begin," Su Yu said. Tai Ching Yunluan was indignant. She sneered. "All right, why don't you show us what kind of good juniors your small hidden family has nurtured?" "Yunhui, you attack." Tai Ching Yunhui had experienced setbacks and had washed away her former cold arrogance. Her temperament was steadier now, and she immediately leaped onto the arena. She is the most outstanding junior among the younger generation of the Tai Ching Empire. Let her have a taste of your brilliant moves. The old man didn't choose seriously, but pointed at a young man who was the weakest among them. He said, "You go. If the outcome is not decided within 10 moves, you don't have to come back." The young man in black cupped his fists and nodded. He leaped onto the arena and stared at Tai Ching Yunhui like a cold cheetah. Decide the outcome within 10 moves? The crowd couldn't help but laugh in anger. Who was Tai Ching Yunhui? One of the 3 most outstanding heroes of the current generation. Since the demise of Nitian Shah, she had become the leader of the 3 heroes. Judging from the cultivation of the young man in black, he should be a level 3 deity. It was wishful thinking to want to decide the outcome within 10 moves. Haha, how arrogant. Fairy Yunhui. Send him off the arena within 10 moves. That's right. Let that bunch of ignorant mountain boars witness the glory of our god realm. Tai Ching Yunhui was completely focused on attacking. Her first move was the Yunyang Tai Chi wings. Her figure was fleeting, and she appeared behind the young man in black like a ghost. She attacked with the force of a thunderbolt. The young man in black seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. Without hesitation, he slapped the back of his hand. Tai Ching Yunhui's attack failed. She immediately displayed the Yunyang Tai Chi wings and changed the angle of her attack. Within a few breaths, she changed several times. Her afterimages overlapped with each other. It was amazing. Tai Ching Yunluan's beautiful eyes revealed a smile of approval. After experiencing setbacks, she has settled down a lot in the past 2 months. Her Yunyang Tai Chi wings are very adept, and she is nearing completion. But Su Yu's expression was slightly grave. He said, "This is already the 9th round, isn't it? Let's see if she can survive the last round." "Survive?" Tai Ching Yunluan sighed. "Elder Su, you have underestimated Yunhui. Looking at the current situation, she still has the upper hand." Su Yu shook his head. The opponent has not even shifted his feet. Yunhui has attacked 9 times in a row, but she has not even touched his sleeves. How can she have the upper hand? Just as Su Yu finished speaking, the situation in the arena changed in an instant. "It's time to end this," the young man in black muttered to himself during the 10th round. It was also at this moment that Tai Ching Yunhui teleported to the center of his back. She aimed at his vital spot and gave him a nimble attack. But suddenly, the young man in black in front of her disappeared. He had disappeared. He had disappeared even faster than her. This was enough to show that the opponent had a movement technique that was faster than her. Not good. Tai Ching Yunhui's heart thumped. She had just thought of this when she felt a sharp pain on her back. With danger approaching, Tai Ching Yunhui shot out a mass of yin and yang energy from her back, pushing her body away at the critical moment. She turned her head to look. Her pupils shrank as she realized that it was the man in black. He had appeared behind her with a trajectory that even she could not capture. Swish! The figure of the young man in black disappeared again. Before Tai Ching Yunhui could react, her back was bombarded by a powerful force. Tai Ching Yunhui activated her life-saving divine technique, using the yin and yang energy to protect her body, neutralizing 99% of the force. But the remaining small part of the force still caused her to spit out blood. She was sent flying into the arena and fainted on the spot. The audience was dead silent. A breath ago, Tai Ching Yunhui had suppressed the opponent to the point that he could not fight back. A breath later, she was killed by the thunder, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Moreover, it was exactly 10 rounds. To be precise, it was 1 round. She had allowed her opponent 9 rounds. She had only used 1 round. Looking at the unconscious Tai Ching Yunhui, whose chest was stained with blood, the audience could not believe that she was the leader of the 3 heroes of the younger generation. The old man chuckled. 10 rounds, and the winner has been decided. Tai Ching Yunwan was shocked. She stared at the young man in black, her face full of fear. What a great movement technique. Peacock King, you go. Swish. A middle-aged woman in colorful clothes leaped out from the contestants of the Tai Ching Empire. His appearance was nothing special, and he did not stand out in the crowd. But as soon as she appeared, it immediately caused excited cheers. It's her, the #1 king of the Tai Ching Empire, Peacock King. Didn't the rumors say that she had already passed away? She's actually still in the mortal world. It's actually her, the Peacock King, who is known as the best movement technique among the 3rd heaven deities. I heard that she is Tai Ching Yunhui's teacher. Tai Ching Yunhui's movement technique was personally taught by this teacher. There's going to be a good show. Tai Ching Yunwan stared at the old man. She is considered a 3rd heaven expert of the older generation. Your junior might not be enough. Let's change. But the old man still laughed. No need to change. It's still 10 rounds. Arrogant. The audience was furious. The Peacock King was a famous expert of the older generation. He was not like the younger generation, like Tai Ching Yunhui. His strength was many times higher. Fine, you asked for it. Tai Ching Yunwan's eyes flashed. Peacock King, since the opponent is so confident, you don't have to hold back. The Peacock King nodded expressionlessly. I know. After he finished speaking, he turned into a colorful shadow. In an instant, he flew around the arena. The entire arena was covered by colorful shadows. It was impossible to see where the Peacock King was. Tai Ching Yunwan sneered and stared at the old man. Then, he looked at the youth in black with pity. It's time to change to the next one. But the corner of the old man's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. The youth in black did not give way. Instead, he raised his head and stared at the colorful shadows in the sky. His figure disappeared in an instant. In the next moment, the dense, colorful shadows were suddenly broken. The Peacock King's arms were bleeding profusely. He retreated. His calm face was replaced by shock. You didn't use movement technique. You. The youth in black shook off the remaining divine blood on his claws. He said coldly, can't even withstand a single blow. Before his words reached the ears of the Peacock King, she suffered another untraceable attack. Poof! Her body, along with her soul, was suddenly destroyed. Staring blankly at the bloody rain and the scattering soul fluorescence, everyone was stunned. 2 moves. The Peacock King died, just like that. Chapter 1561. Haha. Is this the strength of your god realm? All of you are vulnerable. Even the weakest of the people I brought is far inferior to her. The old man laughed. Do you really think you could defeat the evil woman with just a motley crew? In my opinion, you should give up on this idea and find a place to hide from the disaster. His sarcastic words fiercely stimulated everyone's self-esteem. What is there to be arrogant about? Isn't it just 2 consecutive wins? I'll do it. An unknown strong man jumped onto the arena, holding a strange long knife. I am Wu Yiming. Hearing this name, the audience inside and outside the arena erupted again. It's him? The former knife emperor Wu Yiming. What? 3,000 years ago, he defeated the 4 great empires of the same level? Wasn't it said that he was killed by Nitian Guyan? 3,000 years ago, among the younger generation, there was an outstanding figure who was famous in the god realm. At the age of 30, he reached the peak of level 3. His saber Dao was even more superb. Except for the 4 great emperors at the time, no one was sure that they could kill this person. Some people called him the Knife Emperor. 3,000 years had passed, and the youth of the past was no longer there. Instead, he was replaced by the old Wu Yiming. After 3,000 years, his cultivation and attainments in the saber Dao would definitely be astonishing. Even Tai Ching Yunwan revealed a look of shock and doubt. Strange, isn't he dead? She could be so sure that Wu Yiming had already perished. This matter was not a secret among the 4 emperors. Back then, Wu Yiming was in the limelight, and the heaven-defying empire had extended an olive branch to him. However, Wu Yiming was rebellious and refused all the empires. In the end, he angered Nitian Gyun, who personally killed him to prevent him from falling into the hands of the enemy and becoming a big problem. Why was he still alive? While thinking, Taiqing Yunluan secretly asked Su Yu for instructions. But strangely, Su Yu closed his eyes and sat down, completely ignoring her. Taiqing Yunluan was helpless and could only stare at the arena with suspicion. 3 moves. Wu Yiming held the long knife and pointed it at the black-clothed youth. The black-clothed youth laughed. Okay, I will finish you in 3 moves. Schwa, the black-clothed young man, disappeared abruptly once again. That strange and untraceable movement technique caused the hearts of all the spectators to rise to their throats. It was as if they could see Wu Yiming's tragic death again. However, Wu Yiming snorted coldly. What a sneaky trick. 1 blade to break all techniques. Wu Yiming's long saber swept out, shooting out endless saber shadows. With him as the center, they shot out in all directions, covering every angle. Puff! Instantly, a shocking scene appeared. Ripples of light flickered near the arena, and the sound of cloth being torn resounded. Then, there was an explosion as if something had been destroyed. The scene on the arena seemed to have changed into another space. The arena was still the same arena, but it gave off a completely different feeling. This was especially true for the black-clothed youth. He had clearly disappeared, but now he had appeared behind Wu Yiming without anyone noticing. He was sneakily preparing to kill him. At this moment, everyone was enlightened. So it was an illusion. It was no wonder that the famous Peacock King, a martial artist who excelled in movement techniques like her, had died so tragically. It turned out that everyone, including the spectators, was already trapped in an illusion. The black-clothed youth she saw was just an illusion. The real black-clothed youth took advantage of her illusion to despicably injure her. Wu Yiming saw the clues and used his saber to break the illusion array. The black-clothed youth revealed a look of surprise. His eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He did not retreat, but advanced instead, fiercely grabbing towards Wu Yiming's heart. Wu Yiming snorted coldly, cold saber like wind. The long saber in his hand suddenly stabbed into the arena. Suddenly, a gust of wind gushed out from the long saber. Like a tornado, it wrapped around Wu Yiming. That tornado was filled with extremely sharp saber chi. The black-clothed youth was caught off guard and was sucked into the tornado. He did not even have the chance to scream before he was torn into pieces by the tornado. The black-clothed youth was eliminated. Within 2 moves, he was cleanly eliminated. The Saber Emperor's swift and fierce methods were extremely inspiring. We won. We won. Long live the Saber Emperor. That's what you get for being arrogant. Our deity realm is blessed with great people. A mere barbarian dares to be so arrogant. On the platform, the black-clothed elder's expression changed for the first time. Traces of anger lingered on his face. Taiqing Yunluan let out a long breath. Although she had doubts in her heart, no matter what, Wu Yiming had indeed helped them vent their anger, especially the death of the Peacock King. The descendant of the dragon race is only SOSO, eliminated in 2 moves, unable to withstand a single blow. Taiqing Yunluan's expression became much more relaxed. She was full of confidence. I advise you to return to the wilderness as soon as possible. Don't continue to embarrass yourself. The black-clothed elder stared at Wu Yiming and said in a low voice, Don't you feel that it is too despicable for a soul body to participate in a spar? This is unfair. I suggest that we disqualify him from the competition. Hee. Taiqing Yunluan sneered. In terms of despicability, isn't it even more despicable for your clansmen to use illusions to confuse the opponent and ambush him to death? The black-clothed elder's expression was calm. Illusions are also a part of one's strength. Who said that illusions are not allowed? Taiqing Yunluan sneered. Then, who said that souls are not allowed to participate? Besides, you are well aware of how weak a soul body is. You clearly have a great advantage. Why are you still complaining that it is unfair? Why don't your clansmen also have their souls out of their bodies? How about it? These words won everyone's cheers. That's right. Why are you being unfair? Want to be over if everyone uses their souls to fight? You really don't want face. You have the advantage, and you still cry injustice. These wild boorish people are probably hoping that we will tie our hands and feet to compete with them. That is only fair. The merciless mockery caused the black-clothed elder's expression to gradually darken. He said coldly, "Fine, then let's change people. You go." He pointed at another black-clothed youth. His aura was even stronger than the first. "I leave." However, Wu Yiming decisively went down. Carrying his long blade, he walked out of the venue without turning back. The onlookers were stunned. The morale that they had gathered with great difficulty started to decline again. However, a figure flashed on the arena, and a scholar in a scholar's outfit appeared. He waved his Chinquan fan and said leisurely, "Let me go." The black-clothed elder glanced at him, and his old eyes lit up. "Another soul body. Who are you?" The scholar said casually, "I am the nine-poisoned scholar." Hearing this, the onlookers were surprised again. The nine-poisoned scholar. Is he the poison king who shocked the 4 emperors of the god realm 5,000 years ago? Yes, it should be him. His poison skills are superb, and no one can compete with him. His disciples are all poison masters. The 9 poisons sect that he created was on the verge of becoming the 5th dynasty. I can't believe he is still alive. This is unbelievable. On the rostrum, Tai Ching Yunluan widened her eyes in surprise. The 9 poisons sect had threatened the ruling position of the 4 dynasties, so they had been killed by the joint forces of the 4 dynasties. Their sect master, the 9 poisons scholar, had been killed by Yongye Juyang. Tai Ching Yunluan had seen that scene with her own eyes. He was definitely dead. Why is his soul still here? Strange. This is too strange. She asked Suyu again, but found that Suyu was still daydreaming. "Senior Su, why did you?" Tai Ching Yunluan grumbled, but suddenly, her eyes flickered with wisdom. Her gaze swept past Suyu and the 9 poisoned scholar below, and her heart was filled with ecstasy. The bewilderment on her face disappeared, replaced by a knowing smile, and she sipped her tea leisurely. "Come on. 10 moves," the black-clothed elder ordered. The second black-clothed young man jumped onto the arena and stared at the 9 poisoned scholar. "I don't need 10 moves, just 5 will do." Boundless trees fall, not only the Yangtze River rolls in. The black-clothed young man stood still and recited an ancient poem. When he finished speaking, a magnificent scene appeared on the arena and engulfed the 9 poisoned scholar. The black-clothed young man curled his lips disdainfully. "It seems I don't need 5 moves, just 1 will do." He put his palms together, and the magnificent scene shrank into a painting. Strangely, the 9 poisoned scholar was also trapped in the painting and couldn't escape. The black-clothed young man said coldly, "Drown him." Splash, splash. In the painting, the waters of the Yangtze River suddenly rolled, setting off monstrous waves that drowned the entire painting, including the 9 poisoned scholar. Such a strange divine technique was truly frightening and frightening. Everyone was immediately concerned about the 9 poisoned scholar's safety. However, the 9 poisoned scholar's figure could no longer be seen in the waves. His breath had been cut off, as if he had been erased from the world. The black-clothed young man laughed sinisterly. How weak, so easily. But at that moment, the painting scroll in his hand was suddenly corroded into ashes by the poison. The boundless river water poured out of the painting like a broken dam, and the black-clothed young man was caught off guard and fell to the ground. "Ah!" The black-clothed young man let out a painful cry. The river water that rushed out was purplish-black and emitted an endless amount of poison. The black-clothed young man was completely corroded in the river water. When the river water in the painting flowed away, an elegant scholar leisurely walked out. He calmly glanced at the black-clothed young man and said, "The descendant of the Dragon Clan is only SOSO." After saying this, he fluttered his sleeves and floated away. "Ha ha ha ha! Child of the Dragon Clan, do you know how powerful the God Realm is? Since ancient times, the God realm has produced many outstanding talents. Do you think that with just a little bit of the Dragon Clan's bloodline, you can look down on us? Haha, get lost quickly. Don't let your people die here. The black-clothed old man's face darkened slightly. He turned his head and stared at Suyu. Although he had no evidence, his intuition told him that the two strange soul bodies that appeared consecutively must be related to Suyu. All right, let's continue. The black-clothed old man snorted lightly and called out another black-clothed young man, whose ability was even stronger. On the side of the God realm, another strong man of the older generation who had been living in seclusion for many years jumped out. This time, it was an old monster from 8,000 years ago, the Fatal Swordsman. Seeing this scene, Taiqing Yunluan was completely relieved. Years ago, the Fatal Swordsman had been instructed to come to the Imperial City to assassinate her. She had killed him with her own hands, his body and soul destroyed. There was no possibility that he would ever live again. Without a doubt, this was all Suyu's doing, and the result was just as she had expected. Within 3 moves, the black-clothed young man had killed another one. The black-clothed old man's face was as gloomy as water. Next, on the side of the God realm, another old monster had appeared, and each one was stronger than the last. After 10 consecutive rounds, 10 black-clothed young men had been killed consecutively. Even the last one was extremely powerful, close to a level 2 deity. He was an existence that terrified even Taiqing Yunluan. Chapter 1562. He killed her with a single palm strike with his unparalleled combat power and unparalleled poise. That breathtaking power made the people of the God realm seethe with excitement. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect the God realm to have so many hidden, peerless masters. Each one is more ruthless than the last. Count me in this attack on the ancient tomb and annihilate the sinful woman. I'll go too. With so many strong men at the forefront, why would we be afraid that we won't be able to defeat a mere sealed, sinful woman? Many who were timid and unwilling to go into battle were encouraged by the series of old monsters. The previous gloominess and depression were swept away, and the morale was unprecedentedly high. Taiqing Yunluan's face was overflowing with joy. Her beautiful eyes blinked as she stared at Suyu, her eyes filled with a strange light. What kind of existence was he? Wherever he was, there were miracles everywhere. Thinking back to the last ancient creature who appeared and was supposed to be dead, Taiqing Yunluan felt that Suyu's whole body was emitting a mysterious brilliance that could turn something rotten into something magical. Do I look good? Suyu suddenly opened his eyes. A pair of eyes that were as deep as the starry sky seemed to be flashing with lightning, causing Taiqing Yunluan's delicate body to tremble. She hurriedly shifted her face away and said in a panic, "Don't misunderstand, I didn't mean that." After saying that, her face flushed as if she had been caught stealing for the first time. Suyu smiled faintly and looked around at the audience with a look of surprise. "Oh, is the sparring over?" The audience didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Haha, Senior Su, you don't know. Our God realm sent out all the experts. Even the old monarchs who had been hiding for hundreds of thousands of years showed up. That scene was really thrilling. Senior Su, you really missed a wonderful show." Suyu looked surprised. "I didn't know that there were so many experts in the God realm. It's really surprising. I'll have to pay them a visit someday to discuss the matter of defeating the sinful woman." Hearing that, the audience was even more delighted. They believed that with Suyu's presence, those ancient giants would be willing to join in the great battle. Suddenly, Suyu looked at the remaining black-robed elder and said blankly, "Where are the descendants of the Dragon Clan? Why don't I see them? Their strength is not bad, and if they are willing to suppress the evil woman, they will also be a good fighting force." Immediately, a god laughed sarcastically and said, "They must have been too arrogant and were killed by the old monsters who couldn't stand the sight of them. Not a single one of them was spared." Suyu was startled and shook his head regretfully. "Sigh, everything about those aged seniors is good, but their temperament is just too bad. No matter how arrogant those juniors are, they are still people of my divine realm. It would be a pity to kill them like this. Their actions were too ruthless, too ruthless. Pucci, Tai-Ching Yunluan couldn't help but burst into laughter. She hurriedly covered her mouth and recovered her noble and calm demeanor. However, he was laughing uncontrollably in his heart. Others might not know, but she knew that those old monsters who had appeared were all Su Yu's handiwork. Seeing Su Yu reprimand them for being cruel and merciless, she couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha. At this time, the black-robed old man slowly stood up and let out an ear-piercing and unpleasant laugh. Tai-Ching Yunluan stared at him and said with a faint smile, "Could it be that you have gone mad because your people were all killed?" The black-robed old man's body slowly surged with a power that made the hearts of living creatures palpitate. That power seemed to contain the purest destruction, which could destroy everything in the world. Whether it was living creatures, objects, or the entire space barrier, there was nothing that could not be destroyed. Tai-Ching Yunluan's expression changed, and she suddenly stood up. Her face was full of surprise and doubt. What is this? The power of destruction made her tremble with fear and panic. The black-robed old man ignored her and only stared at Su Yu. On the top of his head, a pair of short dragon horns hidden in his hair kept growing with the release of the power of destruction, turning into a pair of pitch-black, sharp dragon horns. His head also gradually changed from the shape of a human to a ferocious dragon head. Then, his body gradually expanded and began to grow pitch-black dragon scales. In a short while, he had turned into a giant pitch-black dragon that was 1,000 feet long, occupying the sky above the rostrum. The pair of dim yellow dragon eyes emitted a fierce light and stared at Su Yu from afar. His eyes were full of mockery. Su Yu, you are really as annoying as ever. I wanted to play with you a little longer, but you seem to think that your life is too long. He had wanted to stir up the competition and defeat the confidence of the people of the God Realm with bloody means. However, he did not expect that Su Yu had used some unknown method to summon the soul of the dead that had perished countless years ago. In the end, not only did it not defeat the confidence of the people of the God Realm, but it also made them unprecedentedly excited. His trip could be said to be a wedding dress for Su Yu. A simple competition was very limited in boosting the confidence of the people of the God Realm. However, his participation was completely different, and the effect could be said to be 100 times greater. Su Yu also slowly got up and stared at the pitch-black dragon suspended in the air. He said indifferently, "As expected, it is really what you have transformed into, the World Annihilation Dragon." The people who had been cheering just now witnessed the dramatic changes in the venue with their own eyes, and they were all shocked. That old man was actually a clone of the World Annihilation Dragon. Then, could it be that the one who had just fought with them was also a clone of the World Annihilation Dragon? Thinking of this, the feet of many onlookers trembled, and their hearts were filled with unspeakable fear. As for Tai-Ching Yunwei, she was lucky enough to escape, and her back was drenched in cold sweat. It was as if she had walked through the gates of hell. What I regret the most is that I did not kill you in the beginning, giving you the opportunity to grow. Today, your strength has reached such a level. In the great beginning realm, only the heavenly sons and goddesses can compete with you. The World Annihilation Dragon said, "Your potential is really beyond expectations. I believe that even a master would be surprised. If I had been cruel and used a few more scales, you would not be where you are today." Su Yu stood with his hands behind his back, showing no fear. He said, "You speak as if you did not go all out to kill me that day." He still remembered how powerful the young man who had transformed from the scale was. If Nitian Gyun had not happened to kill him, Su Yu might not have been able to survive until now. Anyway, it is time to return my magic weapon. The World Annihilation Dragon shook his head indifferently and spoke in the obscure dragon language. Suddenly, Su Yu's chest thumped violently, and his heart seemed to want to leave his body and return to its owner. The World Annihilation Dragon sensed it and stared at Su Yu's chest. He couldn't help but laugh. "You are really seeking your own death. You actually used my rule fragment as your heart. It seems that you do not know that once the rule chain recognizes a master, it will not be easy for the rest of its life. No matter how many times you refine it later, as long as the original master calls it back, it will immediately break away from your control. I didn't expect you to use it as your heart. In this way, it is really easy to destroy you. Once Su Yu lost his heart as the strongest person in the God realm, even if he was not destroyed, his strength would be greatly reduced. In the face of the World Annihilation Dragon, his strength would be greatly reduced, which meant that he would definitely die. Return, the World Annihilation Dragon shouted. However, the heart in Su Yu's chest only accelerated and gradually stopped. It had no intention of returning at all. The World Annihilation Dragon was stunned, and his eyes were full of surprise. He once again performed the dragon language. Return. However, the rule chain no longer responded, and all contact between it and him was cut off. How could this be? The World Annihilation Dragon was shocked, and his face was full of disbelief. When he came back to his senses, he roared furiously, "What did you do to my rule fragment?" Su Yu looked indifferent and said, "Let me reiterate, it is my rule fragment, and it has nothing to do with you." Impossible. Once the rule fragment recognizes a master, it will never change its owner. Even the Pathmaster cannot change this iron law. How did you do it? Or, who is secretly helping you? The World Annihilation Dragon roared like a wounded beast that had been stabbed in the vitals. The one who helped him was naturally the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Only now did Su Yu realize how difficult it was to change the owner of the rule chain. Even the Pathmaster could not do anything about it. If that was the case, did the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron surpass the Pathmaster in some ways? You don't want to say it? I will destroy you. The World Annihilation Dragon roared, and a cloud of pure, black dragon breath came out of his nostrils. Su Yu sneered, snorted, and also spat out a cloud of dragon breath. The two groups of dragon breath confronted each other in the void, offset each other, and disappeared into nothingness. Dragon breath. You refined the blood of the World Annihilation Dragon in the rule fragment? The World Annihilation Dragon was shocked again. He once thought that he had overestimated Su Yu. However, when they fought, he realized that he had always underestimated Su Yu. The power of the World Annihilation Dragon. The World Annihilation Dragon roared, and his whole body released a terrible power of destruction. It was this power that made the whole world tremble. A pure black destiny swept out from the body of the World Annihilation Dragon, like a dark cloud covering the sky above the venue. The World Annihilation Dragon wandered and rolled in the dark clouds, roaring loudly. "No one can take away my treasure. No one can. Destroy the world." The World Annihilation Dragon roared, and the power of destruction poured down like a broken dam. Taiching Yunwan's expression changed greatly. The people gathered here were the strongest people in the God realm. If the power of destruction descended, wouldn't they all be killed? If their vitality was already greatly injured before they could even subdue the sinful woman, then what was the point of continuing the subduing battle? Everyone was panicked and fled from the venue. However, when they escaped, they found that the venue had been covered by a looming power of destruction. Once they got close, they would immediately die. When was it set up? Why didn't we notice it? It must have been prepared before he came in. What? From the beginning, he wanted to kill all of us. The World Annihilation Dragon roared playfully. "Come on, let the so-called heroes of the God realm show up. I want to see if they will show up again." Obviously, they would not show up because they were all heroes disguised by Su Yu's own soul. They were just using their divine paths in the past. If this went on, the lie would be exposed. Right at that moment, a burst of hearty laughter resounded through the world, and it caused the destructive power that was pouring down to come to a stop. It's just an incarnation of the World Annihilation Dragon. There is no need for heroes to show up. I Su am enough. Su Yu stepped forward and faced the World Annihilation Dragon with extreme contempt. If you show up in person, I might be afraid. Unfortunately, a clone is not qualified to be so arrogant in front of me. Ding! With a soft sound, a snow-white disc rotated in Su Yu's palm. It was a replica of the World Annihilation Plate. Chapter 1563. A replica of the World Annihilation Plate. The arrogant dragon's expression suddenly changed. It seemed that the World Annihilation Plate of the World Annihilation Emperor had left a deep impression on him. It's good that you know him. Su Yu's eyes became colder. After a brief moment of surprise, the World Annihilation Dragon saw the clues of the World Annihilation Plate. His yellow eyes were full of sarcasm. Oh, I almost forgot that the sinister World Annihilation Emperor has been destroyed. Without him, even if you get the real World Annihilation Plate, so what? Without the technique to control him, you can't even exert a 10,000th of the power of the World Annihilation Plate. You should rest in peace. The World Annihilation Dragon looked up to the sky and laughed. The power of destruction rolled down towards Su Yu. However, Su Yu's mouth was full of sarcasm. He said slowly, "Who told you that the World Annihilation Emperor is not in the world?" Chirp! The replica of the World Annihilation Plate in his palm suddenly rotated rapidly. The sharp edges around the plate drew sharp arcs. The surrounding space was instantly cut and shattered, revealing the space barrier. With a flick of Su Yu's palm, the rotating World Annihilation Plate left his palm and rushed into the sky. The power of World Annihilation crumbled upon contact. The world-destroying power that covered the sky was swept away in an instant. The World Annihilation Dragon was surprised. The first form of the World Annihilation Plate, the ultimate World Annihilation Blade? Su Yu's heart moved. The first form? Could there be a second form that no one knew about? His thoughts flashed, and his palm did not stop. The World Annihilation Plate did not slow down, and in an instant, it cut through the neck of the World Annihilation Dragon, leaving a bloody hole in his body. The World Annihilation Dragon roared in pain, and his yellow eyes were replaced by horror. With a sweep of his dragon tail, the World Annihilation Dragon immediately fled without waiting for the World Annihilation Plate to spin. The arrogant World Annihilation Dragon fled in the blink of an eye. The people under the stage were silent for a long time, and then burst into cheers like a tsunami. The World Annihilation Dragon. We defeated the World Annihilation Dragon. There are many outstanding people in the God Realm. Not only are there ancient legendary figures, but there is also Senior Su, the strongest man of all time. Yes, we also have the Brahma puppets that have been watered with the blood of all living beings. With this thing, we can conquer the ancient tomb and destroy the evil woman. The disturbance of the World Annihilation Dragon did not destroy the determination of all living beings to destroy the evil woman. Shua, Su Yu retrieved the World Annihilation Plate, a thoughtful look appearing on his face. Tai-Ching Yunwan's face was filled with joy. Senior Su's abilities are unrivaled, and no one in this world can match her. This concubine admires you greatly. This concubine is even more confident in this battle with the evil girl. The threat that this incarnation of the World Annihilation Dragon posed to her was no less than that of the Yongya Chioma. In the end, Su Yu managed to severely injure his opponent with just one move, forcing him to flee. He was very satisfied with this outcome. It's still too early to say. Su Yu's eyes lit up. This time, the incarnation of the World Annihilation Dragon is completely different from the past. If I am not mistaken, something must have happened in the ancient tomb. The Sky Cloud Phoenix's heart jerked when she heard this. After pausing for a moment, a remnant soul fluorescence appeared on Su Yu's palm. In silence, he placed it on the Tai-Ching Yunwan's palm. A hurried soul sound transmission was transmitted to her ears. Bing Hui Songxing is already dead. Tai-Ching Yunwan's soft body trembled. She lost her balance and almost fell. She froze in place. She was shocked, sad, and full of hatred. Was it done by the World Annihilation Dragon? It should be him, Su Yu said, his eyes flashing with a cold brilliance. After a long silence, the Sky Cloud Phoenix gradually became fierce, like a long arrow on a bowstring. In the past, our ancestors were in trouble. Now that the evil man has escaped, he wants to kill us again. I, the Sky Cloud Phoenix, as the descendant of the Tai-Ching Emperor, will not tolerate such humiliation. Su Yu nodded. Don't force yourself. The changes in the ancient tomb are no small matter. If you're not prepared to die, do not go. Hearing the hidden meaning, the sky cloud phoenix said, "What about you?" A touch of determination rose from her eyes. Suyu said, "What should be ended? There must be an end to it. I will go alone." "Oh, Senior Su, are you looking down on me?" The sky cloud phoenix smiled. Suddenly, her expression became serious, and she announced to the world, "I, the 101st generation heir of the Taiching royal family, announce that I will immediately open the Taiching royal family's treasure house. All the magical weapons, divine techniques, and treasures will be distributed to the people of the world. Anyone who is willing to conquer the ancient tomb can claim it." So he was slightly moved. What great courage! As a woman, her breadth of mind was enough to make men blush with shame. "Me too," a clear voice came. It was the Moonwatch sect master. "I, the sect master, announce in the name of the master of the wizard tribe, all the available resources of the wizard tribe will belong to the people of the world to help in this battle." The historic decision of the two great emperors stirred up the people. The big and small forces all over the god realm felt the atmosphere of the end of the world and generously opened the treasure house. In an instant, the people of the god realm were unprecedentedly united. "What do you think?" The sky cloud phoenix smiled, the corners of her mouth curling into a high-spirited smile. Suyu was stunned. After a while, he slowly nodded. "Good. Those who are willing to fight against the evil woman, please follow me. We are going to the ancient tomb now." The sky cloud phoenix was surprised. Suyu said solemnly, "Yes, there are changes in the ancient tomb. The ancient tomb is changing. We must rush there as soon as possible." "But the Brahma puppet is still there," the sky cloud phoenix said. Shaking his head, Suyu said, "Plans can't keep up with the changes. I'm afraid we can't wait for the Brahma puppet to be successfully watered. Let's go to the ancient tomb now." Her eyes flickered for a while, and the sky cloud phoenix gritted her teeth and made up her mind. Sooner or later, it will come. There is no escape. We can only face it bravely. My fellow creatures, the battle against the evil woman has begun. Pick up your weapons, bring your determination, and follow Senior Su to destroy the ancient tomb. The Moonwatch sect master roared at the right time. The legend of Su Yu's invincibility had been ingrained in their hearts until Su Yu easily defeated the World Annihilation Dragon. Their trust in him had reached a point of no return. That trust had unknowingly turned into a kind of faith. They believed that Su Yu was invincible, that Su Yu could bring them the final dawn. Therefore, with a wave of his arm, many responded. All the strong men who had the strength to fight followed Su Yu and charged into the ancient tomb. At the same time, on the nameless mountain, Yongye Chioma was staring at the inverse demon wrapped in the power of the epic-making dragon with deep anticipation. After several days of continuous destruction and torture, the inverse demon finally showed signs of surrender. As expected of the inverse demon, "You can withstand my torture for 9 days and 9 nights." Back then, the epic-making dragon didn't even last half a day. Yongye Chioma panted and grinned hideously. "I wonder if you can withstand it if I do it again." What answered him was silence from the inverse demon. "Humph, then let me have a good taste of this torture." Yongye Chioma laughed hideously in a hoarse voice, his face sickly. However, after 9 days and 9 nights of torture, the power of the epic-making dragon stored in Yongye Chioma's body was insufficient, and the torture had to stop halfway. "Haha, don't celebrate too early. I can have as much of the power of the epic-making dragon as I want." Yongye Chioma smiled mockingly. He took out the dragon pearl and absorbed the power of the epic-making dragon from it. Although he could only absorb less than 1/10,000th of the power of the epic-making dragon, it was enough to quickly replenish the power of the epic-making dragon. However, the moment he held the dragon pearl in his hand, Yongye Chioma was stunned. He lowered his head to look at the dragon pearl, and his pupils constricted. His face turned ashen. "My dragon pearl, when was it swapped? How was the dragon pearl in his hand?" It was clearly a petrified dragon egg. The dragon egg gave off an aura similar to that of the dragon pearl. Hence, Yongye did not realize that the dragon pearl had been swapped without him knowing. Who did it? Yongye was furious. He was a level 1 deity, but he was kept in the dark. Crack. However, what made Yongye hair stand on end was that the ball of power of the epic-making dragon beside him had lost its source of power. It became exceptionally weak, and a thin crack appeared silently. What really scared him out of his wits was that a pitch-black shadow as thin as a strand of hair extended out from the crack and wrapped itself around his legs. Through the crack, ear-piercing laughter that sounded like metal rubbing against each other could be heard. It sounded like it came from the depths of hell. Haha, I've been waiting for this moment. Yongye, I'll remember your torture. Haha. Within the eternal darkness empire. 10 days ago, the glazed crystal mountains had already turned into a pool of scorching lava during the destruction of the Inferno Purgatory. Where the ancient tomb used to be, only a stone tablet was left, standing in the distance. On it, the words of the heavenly book carved in the blood of the divine warriors were extremely dazzling. They flickered rapidly and dyed the sky red. Today, the vicinity of the stone tablet had long been filled with the people of the god realm and the lost nation. In the sky and on the ground, there were people everywhere. Billions of years ago, the 9 divine warriors fought for the people and suppressed the invincible enemy. Today, billions of people gathered in front of the 9 Emperor tablet to suppress the invincible enemy. Time and space were reincarnated, and history seemed to have returned to a moment billions of years ago. The will of the people gathered together, suppressing the ancient tomb under the lava. Even Suyu felt pressured by that kind of will. It was difficult to resist, let alone the bound world annihilation dragon. Gurgle. There was a series of bubbles in the lava, and a huge, ferocious dragon head emerged from the lava. On the top of its head, on the right dragon horn, a broken hole could be seen clearly. The wound was obvious, cut by a sharp object. It used a disdainful gaze to sweep across the common people. Its voice was ancient and lofty, reverberating throughout the entire god domain. Ants, are you here to welcome me into the world? Suyu floated among the people and rolled up his sleeves. Stop pretending. The wind howled and a mighty force surged. The magma below was split in two by Suyu, revealing the ancient tomb and the real body of the world annihilation dragon. A brush had pierced through his body and pinned him to a stone gate. The writing brush was simple and old, and no one knew how many years it had been through, but it was still as straight as before, nailing the huge body of the world annihilation dragon and making it unable to move. The stone door was the door that Suyu had seen in the first place. It was a seal covered with the blood of the 9 divine warriors and written in the heavenly book. However, most of the seal had withered, and the rest were either dim or as weak as fluorescent light. Seeing this scene, Suyu took a deep breath. After not seeing it for 10 years, the seal of the past had withered so much. Didn't this mean that if he had come a little later, the seal of the stone door would have broken itself? One chapter. Chapter 1564. The ignorant people stared at the situation of the world annihilation dragon, and their hearts were completely at ease. Ha! The world annihilation dragon has not escaped yet, and it is a great opportunity for us to kill him. My compatriots from the divine realm, fellow wizards, what are we waiting for? Kill the world annihilation dragon. Anyway, if he doesn't die, I will. Today, I will fight the world annihilation dragon with my life. Charge! Charge! The sound of killing was boiling, like a long-suppressed underground fire erupting in one day. The world annihilation dragon couldn't help but laugh at the sky. A tiger is bullied by a dog, and a dragon is played by a shrimp. You're just a group of ants. What do you do to me? World annihilation dragon's breath. The dark dragon's breath covered the sky and swept across, and the first group of creatures that approached were instantly evaporated into nothingness. The creatures that chased after it all felt a chill in their hearts. A mere dragon breath can kill 10 people, but do you think it can kill billions of lives? Someone in the crowd roared. Swoosh! 2 beautiful figures, like graceful white cranes, cut through the sky and bravely rushed out against the surging dragon's breath. Swish! The two of them each used a magic of the dragon clan to shatter the dragon's breath. World Annihilation Dragon, how dare you, who has been sealed, be so arrogant? One of the beautiful figures shouted softly, and a dragon shadow appeared behind her, speaking in the dragon language. Countless chains of law descended and tightened their necks, blocking the dragon's breath through their nostrils. A dream is like 1,000 years. At the same time, another beautiful figure flew over and performed the mysterious magic of the dragon clan. The World Annihilation Dragon seemed to be in a trance, and his eyes showed signs of dullness. Seeing this scene, the people once again inspired their courage and burst out with a strong, murderous intent. Kill! Kill it! Trillions of living beings charged over at the same time, filled with boundless will. The World Annihilation Dragon woke up from his dream and roared, "You lowly ants, you will die first." His body shook, and 100 reverse scales fell from his neck. Each reverse scale turned into a black-clothed young man with a monstrous aura. All of them were level 3 deities. Then, the 2 dragon horns on the top of his head broke off and turned into 2 black-robed old men. Impressively, they were the old men who had disrupted the sparring session. However, there were now 2 of them. In an instant, the World Annihilation Dragon had countless cultivators. In particular, the 2 dragon horns transformed into black-robed old men. Each of them was an imposing existence comparable to the first heavenly layer. They were extremely dangerous. As expected, as soon as they appeared, the scene immediately became a one-sided massacre. However, the number of living beings in the divine realm was overwhelming. There was no end to them. No matter how much they killed, there would always be another wave of reinforcements. No matter how powerful they couldn't free themselves from being entangled by all living beings. Shua! 2 beautiful figures flew back to Su Yu's side. They were by Wanqing and Yongye Chushua. Whoosh! Then, another beautiful figure quietly sneaked back to Su Yu's side from the depths of the crowd. Her eyes were full of excitement as she looked at the people who were fighting endlessly. She took a deep breath and tilted her head. Everything is going according to Brother Su's plan. The World Annihilation Dragon will be temporarily suppressed by the people. Su Yu nodded slightly and sighed deeply. If there was enough time, we could have waited for the Mermaid Emperor's heaven-burning puppet to finish watering. Unfortunately, time waits for no one, so I have to do it myself. We swear to follow Brother Su to the death. The eyes of the 3 of them flashed with a firm light. So you said good? Life and death will depend on this fight. At the same time, he added in his heart, whether he could see Xia Jingyu again depended on this fight. Follow me. So you took a step forward, passing through all living beings and arriving in front of the stone gate. The 3 women followed closely. The 2 kings, Taiqing Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect leader, also arrived one after another. Qi, after Su Yu landed, without hesitation, he smeared a layer of colorful divine blood on his fingertips and swiped it across the stone gate. A blood talisman condensed by the blood of the 9 emperors immediately emitted green smoke and was erased by this finger. Senior Su, what are you doing? Taiqing Yunluan was shocked by Su Yu's actions. The eyes of the Moonwatch sect leader were also full of confusion. The blood talisman was destroyed. Doesn't that mean that the sinful girl was released? Everyone knew that the sinful girl was sealed by the 10,000 blood talismans condensed by the divine blood of the 9 emperors. If Su Yu destroyed the few remaining blood talismans, wouldn't that mean that the sinful girl was released? Su Yu's fingertips kept smearing, and he shook his head slowly. I don't think it was the blood talisman of the 9 emperors that sealed the sinful girl. The more he came into contact with the sinful girl, the more he realized how terrifying she was. A creature at the level of the Pathmaster was superior to the divine warriors of heaven and earth in every aspect. How could she be sealed by the divine blood of the 9 emperors? Moreover, Su Yu had seen this scene with his own eyes, and he was even more skeptical about this statement. In the reversal of time, he saw with his own eyes that the sinful girl chased the Kylan divine warrior until he had nowhere to escape. The 9 emperors were obviously killed one by one. How could the 9 emperors unite and sacrifice themselves to suppress the sinful girl? The truth described in the inscription on the tablet must be false. Someone must have put the bodies of the 9 emperors together and made this tablet. This tablet and this blood talisman suppressed the sinful girl and the world annihilation dragon. The truth was that the sinful girl was suppressed by something else. Just like the ancient and mysterious brush that pinned the world annihilation dragon. Everyone was stunned. The truth that they knew from the secret scriptures of the royal family had been passed down for hundreds of millions of years. But it turned out to be false. Taiqing Yunluan shook her head with certainty. No, the secret scriptures of our Taiqing royal family have never been broken, and there is no possibility of it being tampered with. Moreover, even if it was tampered with, what about the Empire of Ice and Fire? What about the heaven-defying Empire? What about the Empire of Darkness? Could the fact that the sinful girl was suppressed in their secret scriptures have also been tampered with? Tampering with the secret scriptures of all the descendants of the emperors at the same time was not something that could be done by ordinary people. Especially in the era when the 9 emperors were destroyed and there were no emperors, it was even more difficult to do this. However, Suyu was very confident, and he quickly wiped the blood talisman with his fingertips. When the last faint fluorescent blood talisman dissipated, the stone door that had been sealed for hundreds of millions of years slowly opened with a long, creaking sound. Taiqing Yunluan, the Moonwatch sect master, Luo Shuei, and Yongya Chushue all held their breath, their bodies tense, and they were ready to go. It was as if they could already see a demon that had threatened the god realm for hundreds of millions of years staring at them in the flames of hell. However, when the stone door opened, the reaction of the world annihilation dragon was not relief or excitement, but a roar. Filthy ants, don't go in. His reaction confirmed Su Yu's suspicions. What really trapped the sinful girl was something else, and it was not the blood of the 9 emperors. The heavy stone door slowly opened. As the dust on the stone door flew up, a dense white mist gushed out from the stone door. A special aura rushed over like a tidal wave. Everyone took a breath and felt relaxed. However, the next scene caused everyone to tremble in fear. What? My cultivation? Luo Shui was the first to speak in surprise. She had been stuck at level 3 for many years and had never advanced. However, after taking a breath of the dense white mist, she suddenly broke through the bottleneck she had been stuck at for many years and reached level 2. Me too. A strong breath suddenly appeared, like a silkworm breaking out of a cocoon. Yongya Chushue had also broken through to level 2. Next was by Wan Qing. The most shocking thing was that Taiqing Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect leader, who had been stuck at level 1 for many years, unexpectedly broke through to level 1 after accidentally taking a breath of the dense white mist. That absolute crushing might shook all living beings. How is this possible? The two of them cried out in shock. Taiqing Yunluan's eyes widened as she stared at the powerful breath rolling in her body in disbelief. Her face was full of shock. I need at least 3,000 years to reach level 1. What is this white mist? The Moonwatch sect leader also looked incredulous. It can't be. The cultivation of the wizard tribe is mainly based on the absorption of sorcery energy, which is completely different from the divine path. How could I break through immediately after taking a breath of the white mist? The dense white mist flowed from the stone door and slowly spread in all directions. My cultivation has broken through to the next level. Haha, I have reached the realm of level 3 deity. My cultivation has also improved, and I am on the verge of breaking through. My goodness, I have also improved a lot. What the hell is this magical thing? My cultivation has also improved. The closer they got to the dense white mist, the more obvious the increase in cultivation became. On the contrary, in the thin white mist area, the increase in cultivation became weaker and weaker. The unexpected benefits were like a meteorite falling into a calm lake, splashing big waves. Those in the back who had not benefited from the benefits could not help but be jealous. F***CK. Is there such a benefit? Get out of the way, let me squeeze in. Let me do it. The creatures in the back rushed over like a huge wave, completely drowning the world annihilation dragon. Inside the stone door, the dense white mist gradually thinned. The gloomy, decaying, and ancient scene that they had imagined did not appear. Instead, it was a place full of cold air. The deep coldness was chilling to the bones. In the eyes of Su Yu and the others, a glacier and snowy land were reflected. Looking around, there were endless glaciers and pure white snowflakes. In the world of ice crystals, there was no dust. It was as clean as a mirror, like a place outside of the mortal world, uncontaminated by the mortal world. Su Yu's pupils gradually shrank, and his breathing accelerated slightly. A familiar scene. Under the divine realm of the Great Eastern Alliance, wasn't the world frozen in time exactly like this? The difference was that this world of glaciers was pure. It made people's hearts palpitate from the soul. It was as if they had come to the land of a nine heavens Xian fairy. It was her. So you took a deep breath, his eyes sharp and fierce. An ice crystal could freeze time for billions of years. With a thought, it could kill billions of people. With a look, it could see through time and space for billions of years. Sinful girl, use your blood to find my Jingyu. Su Yu could not suppress the fear in his heart, nor could he suppress the despair. His eyes were like lightning as he glanced around. Su Yu frowned slightly, and his heart was full of doubts. The world of glaciers was not big, and it could be scanned with a thought. However, what surprised Su Yu was that there was no sign of the sinful girl. Taiqing Yunluan and the others were also shocked, and they all flew into the world to search around. But the result was inconceivable. There is no sinful girl here. The Moonwatch sect master held a dusty ice mirror in his hand, which was used for communication. Other than that, there was nothing in the world of glaciers. Haha, stupid ants, who told you that the master was sealed in the stone door? The world annihilation dragon's sarcastic laughter echoed in his ears. There is only a communication divine item left by her. The real master must be about to break free from the seal at this moment, right? Ha ha! Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Wasn't the sinful girl sealed in the stone door? Then where was she sealed? Suddenly, a place appeared in Su Yu's mind, and his expression changed dramatically. Let's go. We have been fooled. The high-profile appearance of the World Annihilation Dragon's Dragon Horn incarnation was part of his plan from the beginning to the end. Chapter 1565. Senior Su, what are you talking about? Taiqing Yunluan was stunned. When did they fall into the trap? Su Yu looked anxious and said, if you were about to break free, would you provoke the enemy at the most critical moment? No, Taiqing Yunluan said with certainty. If that were the case, it would definitely cause unnecessary trouble. Su Yu said, how long has the World Annihilation Dragon lived? How could he not have the slightest bit of cunning? He could have secretly unlocked the seal one step ahead of us, but he insisted on appearing in front of us. What do you think his purpose is? With this explanation, Taiqing Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect leader suddenly understood. They were all leaders of a region, so they were good at scheming. So, they immediately understood the meaning behind Su Yu's words and came to a sudden realization. Looking at the God Realm and the Lost Nation, they were all attracted to the battle against the World Annihilation Dragon. How could they not understand the meaning of the World Annihilation Dragon? To buy time for the sinful lady to break free and prevent her from being interrupted. Ha ha! Now you understand? Unfortunately, it's too late. The Master is about to break free. Don't even think about disturbing him. The World Annihilation Dragon roared, and his huge body shook. The huge stone gate under him closed with a loud bang. Su Yu and the others rushed over the moment the stone gate closed. But the world of glaciers suddenly changed dramatically. Ice creatures with a strong aura of level 1 were born from the glaciers. There were hundreds of them, and the leader was a snow beast that surpassed level 1 and was very close to the level of a middle god. Their faces were strange, and their bodies were full of hunger and thirst. Pairs of dark eyes stared greedily at Su Yu and the others. The Beast King appeared, and his eyes immediately shot out dark lightning. The lightning was a step ahead of them and fell on the stone gate, weaving into a net of electricity. Su Yu and the others stopped, and the stone gate closed with a loud bang. Before the gate closed, the World Annihilation Dragon looked up to the sky and laughed. "You can rest in peace in the ancient tomb forever. The snow beasts left by the Master will treat you well." Su Yu's face was sullen. From beginning to end, it was a trap, including the ancient tomb. The purpose was to trap and even seal the strong man who broke in to kill the sinful lady. Who is it who is plotting this in secret? Su Yu's eyes narrowed. From a 9-emperor stone tablet that revealed the truth of history, to the empty ancient tomb, to the 10,000 blood talismans that deceived all living beings and made them firmly believe that the sinful lady was suppressed in the ancient tomb. There must be someone hiding behind the scenes, controlling everything in the dark. "Senior Su, be careful." Suddenly, Tai-Ching Yun-Wan's cry of alarm sounded beside his ear. At the same time, an incomparably tyrannical level 1 divine power gathered the rich energy of yin and yang and blocked in front of Su Yu. The two pitch-black lightning bolts were blocked by the power of yin and yang, producing crackling sounds. Su Yu's eyes turned cold, and the World Annihilation Plate flew out of his palm. With an extremely strong destructive power, the World Annihilation Plate destroyed the lightning and headed straight for the Beast King. The Beast King's eyes shot out lightning continuously, blocking the World Annihilation Plate. At the same time, hundreds of level 1 deities surrounded them from all directions. Tai-Ching Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect leader gasped. How could they, who had just broken through to the first heaven, fight against hundreds of level 1 deities? Don't get entangled with them. Destroy the glacier. There must be a ball of absolute beginning energy under the glacier. Su Yu was calm. Perhaps the absolute beginning energy was not the only thing that could give birth to such powerful creatures out of thin air. However, the only magical thing that could produce such a dense white fog and boost one's cultivation was the absolute beginning energy. Hearing that, the group of people immediately dodged the attacks of the many snow beasts and changed their focus to destroying the glacier. Boom! With a deafening roar, the Moonwatch sect leader shattered an inconspicuous glacier. At the bottom of the glacier, an exquisite incense burner was revealed. Inside the incense burner, an incense stick with carved dragon patterns was burning. The Moonwatch sect leader was shocked. This ancient tomb had been sealed for billions of years. What kind of incense stick was this? Why was it still burning? However, just as Su Yu had said, the incense stick gave off a very weak absolute beginning energy as it burned. Only after many years of accumulation could so many snow beasts be born. Taking out the incense burner, the Moonwatch sect leader tried to break the incense stick. However, even with his level 1 cultivation, his fingers couldn't leave a single mark on the stick. Sensing this, the snow beasts, including the Beast King, seemed to be infuriated. They roared and rushed toward the Moonwatch sect leader. The Moonwatch sect leader was calm and composed. It seems that Su Yu is right. If the incense stick is broken, these snow beasts will be affected. When he finished speaking, he closed his eyes and performed the most powerful sorcery of the wizard tribe, the lifeless soul destroying curse. The tangible ripples swept across the area, but the incense stick remained unmoved. "Let me try." Tai-Ching Yun-Wan rushed over and gathered the power of yin and yang. Her beautiful eyes became sharp. Yin and yang primary awakening. The power of yin and yang separated abruptly, giving birth to an extremely sharp knife radiance. The knife radiance swept across the incense stick, but strangely, it didn't move an inch. Two level 1 existences had exhausted all their strength, but still couldn't do anything to the incense stick. "Get out of the way!" With a light shout, the World Annihilation Plate cut through the air rapidly. However, to everyone's astonishment, The world annihilation plate only left purple sparks on the incense stick. It didn't even leave a mark on the stick. The snow beasts had already surrounded the Moonwatch sect leader and Tai Ching Yunluan. Su Yu's eyes were solemn. The power of space appeared in his palm, and he teleported the two of them over. The snow beasts missed their target. They immediately turned around and pounced on Su Yu and the others angrily. Senior Su, even the world annihilation plate can't break this thing. We'd better fight it head-on. Tai Ching Yunluan clenched her teeth and smiled bitterly. They had fought against the sinful woman, but they didn't even get to see her face before they were about to be buried in the ancient tomb. Moreover, they had finally broken through to level 1 and fulfilled their long-cherished wish. They didn't even have time to be happy about it. So you turned a deaf ear to her and seemed to be deep in thought. Just as the snow beasts were about to complete their encirclement, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He had a thoughtful look on his face. It's not impossible to cut off the incense stick. However, the owner of this place was so kind and left us the key to open the stone door. Why do we need to do this? Huh? The incense stick was the key to open the stone door? No matter how one looked at it, the existence of the incense stick was a deliberate murderous intent. Its purpose was to kill all the living creatures that entered the ancient tomb. Where did Su Yu get the key? In response to their doubts, Su Yu only said one thing. What is the result of the collision between the strongest spear and the strongest shield? The fable that they had heard in their childhood suddenly dawned on them. The incense stick was invincible, and the stone door was extremely hard after hundreds of millions of years. When the two collided, one of them would be injured. Block the snow beast for me. So he took a deep breath and turned into a sharp arrow. He held the incense stick in his hand and pierced the stone door with the incense stick. Bang! A violent tremor that shook the mountains and the earth came. The entire world of glaciers trembled violently. At the same time, a shocking explosive force erupted from the moment of contact. Su Yu was the first to be hit and suffered devastating damage from the shockwave. His body shattered in an instant, leaving only the torso of the rules behind. Fortunately, the pure vitality immediately restored his body. This was Su Yu. If it had been anyone else, they would have already died in the collision. An attempt at the cost of death was not without results. The incense stick was still there, and the incense stick was also there. On the other hand, the stone door had a crack the width of a person. However, the world annihilation dragon outside the stone door noticed it and immediately slapped its huge dragon tail to close the stone door. How could Su Yu do as he wished? A golden light flew out of his palm, and the divine nine-dragon cauldron appeared. It was stuffed between the cracks of the two stone doors, blocking them. Go! Su Yu whispered, manipulating the divine nine-dragon cauldron to continue to expand. Tai Ching Yunluan, the Moonwatch sect leader, and the others came out one after another, leaving the ancient tomb. Finally, Su Yu also flashed out. The moment he appeared, Su Yu put away the divine nine-dragon cauldron without hesitation. He held the cauldron in his hand and slapped it above his head. A huge shadow also fell rapidly at this moment. Buzz! The divine nine-dragon cauldron trembled as if it had collided with something. Looking up, it was the furious world annihilation dragon. One of his huge black dragon claws was being blocked by the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Ant, how'd you do it? You can open the stone door from the inside. The world annihilation dragon was extremely surprised. This stone door was quite mysterious. Even in his heyday, it was extremely difficult for him to open the stone door from the inside. He did not believe that Su Yu, a small prospective deity, could easily escape. Su Yu shook his palm and shook off the giant claw of the world annihilation dragon. He immediately flew into the sky and said without looking back, Go! The sinful girl is about to be born. Were she sealed? Tai Ching Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect leader had experienced the ancient tomb and had long been convinced of Su Yu's judgment. Su Yu shook his head. I'm not sure, but there's a place that I've been concerned about for a long time. The group traveled across the stars and the moon without stopping. Finally, they arrived at a place in the God Realm in just 3 days. The Moonwatch sect leader was the most familiar with this place. He said in surprise, This is the Blackwood Forest. So you said that the sinful girl has actually been sealed in our lost nation? In response, Suyu said, it's just a suspicion. It had only been half a month since they last came here. Last time, the water of the god realm gathered here and quickly flowed away. Now it was dry everywhere, and the last drop of water in the lost god realm had completely flowed away, leaving only a dark cave. Looking down from above, it was like an extremely deep eye, giving people a strange sense of unease. The Moonwatch sect leader said in surprise, "It's strange that I didn't know there was a cave here." He was not the only one. Before the water of the god realm had flowed away, no one would have thought that there was a cave here. The strangest thing is, the Moonwatch sect leader looked around, and his expression became solemn. The location of this place should be the center of the 3 forbidden lands. This can't be a coincidence, right? Taichin Yunluan's beautiful eyes flickered, and she murmured, "The 3 forbidden lands of the Lost Nation existed for trillions of years before our god realm descended, and the sinful girl was sealed only 100 million years ago. How can Senior Su be so sure that the sinful girl was sealed here?" Chapter 1566. Indeed, Suyu had explored all the dangerous and bizarre places in the 2 god realms and the Lost Nation. These were the only 3 places that Suyu could not set foot in. If there was a place where the sinful woman was most likely to be sealed, it was here. What he said was based on his life experience. However, in the ears of Taichin Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect master, it was unfathomable. The world was so vast, yet Suyu had already explored it. Therefore, they no longer hesitated. "Then let's follow Senior Su and find out." Suyu nodded and took the lead to jump into the huge cave. As soon as he entered the cave, Suyu keenly discovered traces of seals in the damp cave. It was a seal that isolated concealment, which meant that someone had deliberately hidden this cave in the past 100 million years to prevent it from being discovered. This confirmed Suyu's guess that there must be someone behind the scenes secretly controlling everything. Everyone quickly descended. This cave was unfathomably deep. Even with their techniques, they had not reached the bottom for 10 days and 10 nights. 10 days was enough for them to cross the entire Lost Nation and the God Realms, and even enough for Suyu to go back and forth between the 2 God Realms dozens of times. If one was not confident, he might have suspected that he had fallen into some kind of illusion. Fortunately, on this day, they finally sensed the existence of a blockage in front of them. The group slowed down and approached slowly. They found that there was also a stone door there. What refreshed them was that the stone door was exactly the same as the stone door of the ancient tomb. However, what surprised them was that the stone door was open. Judging from the traces left on the ground, it had not been open for a long time, but only recently. How could it be? Someone arrived here one step ahead of us. Taichin Yunluan said in surprise. The Moonwatch sect master was also amazed. Suyu stared at the traces left on the ground and wiped the ground with his fingertips. His pupils shrank slightly. "It's him." Immediately, he felt relieved. "Just as I expected. Who is it?" Taichin Yunluan asked in surprise. Suyu gazed at the deepest part of the stone door and said slowly, "Why don't we ask him?" "Huh?" Everyone was shocked and stared at the depths of the stone door. It was pitch black, and there was an inexplicable seal that they could not see through. "How have you been?" They would never forget the ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against each other. It was the inverse demon. Taichin Yunluan's pupils constricted as fear appeared in her eyes. "You're actually not dead." As black light filled the stone door, an old man with a pale face walked out with his hands behind his back. The Moonwatch sect master was shocked. "Yongye Chioma, it's you?" Suyu shook his head. To be precise, it should be the inverse demon. Yongye Chioma must have been possessed by the inverse devil, and his consciousness has been taken over. It looks like you aren't surprised at all. Could it be that his Dragon Ball was actually stolen by you? An IMO chuckled. His face was brimming with ridicule. The crowd could not help but look at Suyu in shock. They recalled the day when the godly thief Banyue handed over a crystal ball to Suyu, and what he had said while laughing. "I'm afraid we'll have to bid farewell to the eternal night, Chioma." Now, his words had come true. How'd he come to this day? In fact, the reason why Suyu was so sure was because he understood Yongye Chioma's character. Insatiable greed. One Dragon Ball could not satisfy him. Controlling the inverse demon for his own use was his true intention of saving the inverse demon. Given Yongye Chioma's strength, it was impossible for him to control the defying demon. The only way was to use the Dragon Ball. However, the Dragon Ball had been secretly swapped. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before he was devoured by the inverse demon. Suyu stood still and said calmly, "Let them all come out." The inverse demon's lips curled into a cold smile. "I didn't expect to meet you here. You're not fated to die yet. You met me. Come out, all of you." With a soft bellow, a series of figures walked out from the dark stone door one after another. All of them looked lifeless, as if they had lost their minds. Among them was the former emperor of the Empire of Darkness, Yongye Juyang, the former commander-general, Shangwan Feiyu. There were also many strong men of the Empire of Darkness in the past. There was a faintly discernible black shadow on their bodies, leading them from behind. Even they were possessed. Taichin Yunwan's eyes were filled with fear. So the inverse demon could possess multiple people at the same time? A possessed Yongye Chioma was already in unknown danger. Now, there was Yongye Jioyang and Shangwan Feiyu. Go to hell. The inverse demon said indifferently. Yongye Jioyang, Shangwan Feiyu, and the others who were possessed by the inverse demon suddenly unleashed their powerful inverse intents and attacked fearlessly. After being possessed by the inverse demon, their strength was much stronger than before. They had already reached level 1. Humph! Taichin Yunwan snorted and counterattacked with the Yin-Yang blade. The Moonwatch sect master attacked Shangwan Feiyu with the absorption sorcery. After a round of combat, Shangwan Feiyu was smashed into pieces. With a scream, a mass of black shadow flew out of his body and returned to the inverse demon's body. The attack of Yongye Juyang was forcefully resisted by Taichin Yunwan. The inverse demon was shocked. "Both of you have reached level 1. He was amazed. In his eyes, neither of them had shown any signs of a breakthrough before. However, 1 month later, they had successfully reached level 1, which was incredible. However, the inverse demon's expression became more playful. "What a coincidence! I have also obtained a new body. I was just wondering where I could test it." Inverse sword. The inverse demon spat out a long sword made of pure inverse energy, which rotated and slashed at the two of them. Taichin Yunwan and the Moonwatch sect master changed their expressions at the same time. "Don't take it head on." Suyu's expression changed. In an instant, the Azura sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed at the rotating long sword. Puff! The Azura sword was knocked away instantly, while the inverse sword only dimmed a little. Even so, Taichin Yunwan and the Moonwatch sect master tried their best to resist the attack. However, they were still forced to retreat. Divine blood flowed down from the corners of their mouths. Many dangerous sword wounds were left on their divine bodies. If Suyu hadn't blocked most of the force with the Azura sword, they would have been slashed into pieces by the sword. The two of them felt as if they had just passed by the gates of hell. They were terrified. The inverse demon, who had possessed the body of Yongye Chioma, had become much stronger. Even the Snow Beast King in the ancient tomb was no match for him. "Be careful. He has become a medium deity." Suyu said seriously. The hand that had held the Azura sword was badly mutilated. A medium deity. Doesn't that mean he is the overlord of the Star River? Everyone's hearts sank to the bottom. Before they could find the sealed, sinful lady, they had encountered the overlord of the Star River. The key was that they had an irreconcilable hatred with this overlord of the Star River. "Ha ha ha! Suyu, your death is near." The inverse demon's murderous intent was the strongest. When he first showed himself to the world, Suyu almost killed him. He hated the inverse demon, who was a vengeful creature, even more deeply. Suyu rolled up his sleeves and used the power of space to take them away. Then, a red light flashed around him, and he disappeared with the power of the law of space. When he reappeared, he was not in the outside world, but inside the stone door. Despite the critical situation, Suyu's mind became clearer and calmer. If he ran out, there would be nowhere to hide in the passage for 10 days and 10 nights. How could they escape when the inverse demon carried the power of an overlord? The final result would be death. Only within the stone door was there a chance of survival. The inverse demon missed. He turned his head with a sneer and laughed sinisterly. Escape into a dead end? That's fine. Before we get down to business, we can have a prelude of a cat and mouse game. Swoosh! The inverse demon quickly chased after them into the stone door. Inside the stone door, it was bright. What came into view were towering statues, each of which was tens of millions of feet tall. The statues came in all shapes and sizes. There were dragons, insects, birds, demons, and humans at a glance. It was an endless sea of statues. They seemed messy, but in fact, they were arranged in an orderly fashion, forming a huge maze. Suyu stomped his feet and tried to leap over the statue. However, before he did so, he shot out a stone cautiously. As a result, before the stone could cross over the statues, a dark black hole appeared out of nowhere and swallowed the stone. Suyu was secretly shocked. There's indeed a meaning to arranging this group of statues into a maze. It seems impossible to cross it. At that moment, the sound of the inverse demon entering came from behind. Suyu's heart tightened. He immediately took everyone and leaped into the middle of the two statues. The inverse demon chased after them with a long laugh and stared at Suyu mockingly as he entered. The show has begun. This demon spent 3 days and only managed to explore the periphery. Let this demon see how long you can escape. Entering the maze, not only did Taiqing Yunluan and the Moonwatch sect leader lose their sense of direction, but Suyu himself also lost his sense of direction. At the same time, the statues contained a wonderful concealment energy that shielded them from their senses. As soon as they entered the maze, they suddenly couldn't find where they were. Behind them, they could vaguely hear the inverse demon's laughter from afar, which made them feel even more anxious. Take a look at the passage on the right, Taiqing Yunluan said as she found a gap between the two statues not far away. Suyu nodded his head and entered another narrow passageway with a row of statues through the gap. However, after walking for 2 hours, they arrived at a dead end. Look, there are 2 corpses there. The Moonwatch sect leader was the first to find them. He went over to check, and his eyes were solemn. They have been dead for at least 100 million years, and their corpses have almost turned into ashes. They should be creatures from 100 million years ago. If I'm not mistaken, they died in the maze before the sinful lady was sealed. Suyu walked over and checked the remains of their bodies. Most of them had turned into dust, and he could tell that their corpses were not light. However, Suyu could determine the cause of their death. They committed suicide out of desperation, the Moonwatch sect leader said with a sullen face. The corpses of 100 million years old had not completely decayed. It could be seen that the strength of these 2 people when they were alive was at least at the level of Xing River Overlord. However, they couldn't find the exit and were trapped here. Suyu's face was sullen. He looked around and said, "Wanqing, how is your prying technique?" The purple light in by Wanqing's eyes dissipated, and she shook her head. "It's still not good. These statues hide the power of concealment, and I can't pry too far." Everyone suddenly felt depressed. Chapter 1567. Keep looking. Suyu said, after many years of experience, he had developed a character of not giving up easily until the last moment. They went back along the way and came to the first passage. Hey, there's a small gap there. This time, it was the Moonwatch sect master who found it and pointed to a relatively hidden gap. The group's eyes lit up, and they immediately went in. This passage was indeed not a dead end. However, there were 10 more passages in the passage. Continue. Suyu held his breath and chose a passage to enter, walking all the way to the end. What he got was still a dead end. Unsurprisingly, at the end of the dead end, there was a pile of remains that had been reduced to dust. Another dead end. They turned back again and entered the second passage. Along the way, they occasionally saw the remains of creatures who had died of various causes. Everyone's heart gradually sank. By the time they finished the 5th passage, their faces were extremely ugly, and they were on the verge of collapse. If this went on, they would die in despair before the inverse demon could catch up. This could not go on. After thinking for a long time, Suyu reluctantly opened the 9 jade spiritual pearl. As soon as it opened, a figure flew out of it. The moment it appeared, it immediately rushed towards Suyu. "Aya, how dare you let me out? I will eat you." Suyu sighed, and the space eyes and time eyes flicker at the same time. "Giant space-time palm," Suyu shouted. The 2 rays of light intertwined and converged into a giant purple and red palm. It slammed down from the sky and slammed the attacking figure to the ground. "How dare you fight back? You are so angry." The figure became more and more angry, struggling to get up from the ground. However, the giant palm was powerful. Although it had shaken it, it was not so easy to escape. This palm was a joint attack technique that Suyu had come up with after months of meditation. It was inspired by the palm print that cut off time and space in the reverse flow of time and space. Now it seemed that the successful joint attack technique was very useful. It was especially suitable for monsters like Xiao Dai, who could eat anything. This palm print was the power of time and space. It was not a tangible object, so she could do nothing about it. Walking up to her, Suyu said, "Ahem, regarding the tragedy of the skull, I can only express my regret. In fact, I didn't get anything. Really, there was nothing in it. Back then, when Yongye Chioma obtained the giant skull, it was all thanks to Xiao Dai that Yongye Chioma chewed it up bit by bit. However, after it was bitten to pieces, Suyu kicked it away and sent it back into the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Now, he shamelessly said that there was nothing inside. Little Butterfly was so angry that her small body was twitching. What's wrong with you? Was he having an epileptic fit? How could he get such a strange disease at such a young age? Let me take a look, Suyu said with concern. Why are you shaking so much? You even spit out white saliva? Hey, why are you gritting your teeth so hard? Xiao Dai was so angry that her eyes were on fire, and smoke was rising from the top of her head. She said fiercely, "You shameless rogue, let me go if you have the ability. Otherwise, when I get out of here, I swear I will definitely..." As he was speaking, a drop of colorful divine blood appeared on Suyu's fingertip. "What do you want to do to me?" Suyu wore a faint smile. Xiao Dai came to an abrupt stop. She stared at the god blood and could not help but lick her lips. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and her bell-like eyes widened. "Rogue, don't even think of bribing me with a drop of divine blood. My noble character is not something that can be defeated by a mere drop of divine blood." Although she said so, her eyes never left Suyu. "What about 2 drops?" Suyu smiled, and 2 more drops appeared on his fingertips. Gulp. Xiao Dai swallowed hard, but she could not stop protesting. "Don't even think about it. It's just 2 drops. My noble character is... Oh, what about 10 drops? With a swoosh, a drop of divine blood appeared on each of Suyu's fingertips. 10 drops. Xiao Dai's eyes lit up. The annoyance on her face, her stubborn expression, and her noble character disappeared in an instant. "Ah, my respected master, you are an elegant and civilized saint. Your servant, Xiao Dai, is willing to follow you forever." Tai Ching Yunwan and the Moonwatch sect master were speechless. Was this the noble character that she could not bribe? Swoosh! Suyu flicked his fingers, and all 10 drops of divine blood were sucked into Xiao Dai's mouth. She swallowed them happily, and her face was full of happiness. "Wow, I haven't eaten such good stuff in a long time. I'm so happy." "Oh, if you want to be even happier, I have more here," Suyu said. Xiao Dai's eyes immediately became round and bright like the moon. "I want it. Well, there are a few walls here that are blocking my way. If you can break them, I will give you 10 more drops." Xiao Dai's eyes were shining with excitement. "Ha ha ha, you said it yourself. It's just a few walls. Leave it to me. Prepare the spiritual liquid. Ha ha." She laughed, and so did Suyu. Obviously, Suyu was the one who had the last laugh. "Don't be too happy too early. We're going to the innermost area, but we have lost our way," Suyu said as he withdrew the space-time palm print. Xiao Dai patted her chest and said, "Leave it to me." Then, She closed her eyes and pointed in a direction. Haha, idiot, isn't it the innermost area? It seems there are many incredible treasures, more precious than the blood sword in your hand. Hearing this, Su Yu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. The blood sword she was pointing at was undoubtedly the 9th-ranked Emperor-based Saint artifact, the Azura sword. So, what was more precious than the Azura sword? One could only imagine. It must be the 4 Emperor-based Saint artifacts ranked 5th to 8th. Apart from the World Annihilation Plate, which was the 5th-ranked Emperor-based Saint artifact, the other 3 had long been lost, and no one knew what they were. They had completely disappeared with the fall of the 3 divine warriors of heaven and earth, so there was no record of their information on the Emperor-based Saint artifact ranking. It turned out that they had all been buried with the sinful girl. Suppressing his excitement, Su Yu couldn't help but look at Xiao Dai, feeling surprised. This mutated 9-colored chaos butterfly was a little too special. The maze was nothing to her, and the shielding power of the statues could do nothing to her. Go. It's all up to you now, Su Yu said. Xiao Dai walked up to a statue happily and grinded her teeth. Haha, I haven't moved my mouth in a long time. Today, I'm here to grind my teeth. Ow. With a strange cry, Xiao Dai pounced on a statue and opened her mouth to bite it. Under the stunned gazes of Taiqing Yunluan and the others, a piece of the statue, which they couldn't even get close to, was bitten off by Xiao Dai. Black holes appeared one after another near the statue, trying to swallow Xiao Dai. But in the end, Xiao Dai just frowned and allowed them to attach themselves to her body. Her body emitted a 9-colored light, and the black holes couldn't do anything to her. In the maze, only the sound of Xiao Dai chewing cheerfully could be heard. Not long after, a statue was chewed through by Xiao Dai, revealing a passage on the other side. Everyone's scalps went numb, and they stared at Xiao Dai as if they were looking at a monster. Taiqing Yunluan glanced at Su Yu and muttered softly, "The Saida monster is indeed full of monsters." Haha, I'm done warming up. I'm going to grind my teeth seriously now. Xiao Dai bared her teeth, passed through the statue, entered another passage, and continued to chew. Her speed was several times faster, and a statue was chewed through in every incense stick's time. Puff! All of a sudden, Xiao Dai, who was chewing on something hard, spat it out. What is this thing? Why is it so hard? It almost broke my teeth. It fell to the ground, and the sound of metal bouncing could be heard. Su Yu fixed his eyes on it. It was a bronze coin, printed with the words of the heavenly book, which Su Yu didn't recognize. Picking it up, Su Yu had a strange look in his eyes. Looking at the 2 statues that had been chewed through, he thought for a moment and said, "Xiao Dai, bite the chest of the statue. If there are any foreign objects, leave them for me." Xiao Dai was not interested in the coin that she couldn't bite through. She curled her lips and said, "You really know how to cause trouble." With a soft snort, she obediently chose to chew on the chest of the statue. Sure enough, a coin also fell from the next statue. Su Yu kept silent and put them away one by one. Next, under Xiao Dai's bite, the statues were chewed through one by one. Ordinary people needed to explore one passage after another to pass through the maze, but Su Yu and the others bit through the wall directly. Such a method had never been seen before in history. At least, it had never appeared in this maze. On the other side, an IMO held the blueprint in his hand and walked freely in the maze. He was full of the desire to hunt, and patiently searched for Su Yu and the others in the maze. However, 3 days passed. He came to the periphery of the maze and searched almost all the passages in the maze, but he didn't find Su Yu and the others. Strange. Could it be that they just happened to miss them? An IMO frowned and snorted coldly. That human is really lucky. Let him die a quick death. Entering the maze, most creatures would die without a doubt. An IMO relied on his talent to explore the periphery, but Su Yu was a mere human. Was it possible? Therefore, Su Yu and the others were bound to die in the maze. Forget it. He will die anyway. I'd better find that woman as soon as possible. If I can occupy her consciousness, IMO's eyes were filled with great ambition. 3 days passed. On this day, they chewed through a statue and entered another passage. Strangely, All the statues in this passage were different from before. They were all silver white. Xiao Dai bit through with difficulty, but she still managed to bite off a piece. Soon, Xiao Dai bit through it and spat out a coin. It was a silver-white coin. So you picked it up and compared it with the bronze-colored coin from before. His heart was moved. Another 3 days passed. When the silver-white statue was bitten through, it was replaced by a golden statue. This statue was even more difficult to chew than the silver-white statue. Xiao Dai had to use all her strength to finally bite off a piece. It took her a whole day to bite through the golden statue. Just as Suyu had expected, there was a golden coin in the chest of the statue. Chapter 1568. 5 days later, Xiao Dai bit through the last golden statue. A long-lost sense of emptiness washed over them, and their senses were suddenly no longer suppressed. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. The maze was cleared. What entered his sight was a dark hall. In the center of the hall, there was a 3-foot groove. Looking inside, they saw all kinds of unknown, strange insects. They crowded together, fighting and devouring each other. They were so densely packed that it made one feel even more uncomfortable. What kind of insects are these? Taiqing Yunluan was surprised. I don't know any of them. The Moonwatch sect master's eyes were full of curiosity. The Black Forest of the Lost Nation has all kinds of strange insects, but I have never seen any of these before. Just as they were curious, Xiao Dai's expression became strange. She said confusedly, "They seem to be very powerful insects. A few of them are on par with me." "What?" Suyu was surprised. "Do you know them?" Xiao Dai scratched her head. "I don't know, but there seems to be some information in my mind." Regarding this, Suyu wasn't surprised. He had met similar powerful creatures that were born with inherited memories. He had a little purple Cauldron in his hand, which was also born with memories. It could refine elixirs and magic treasures. Unfortunately, the little purple Cauldron had not woken up for 15 years since its last slumber. If he had not sensed its breath, Suyu would have thought that the little Cauldron was dead. "So, they are very dangerous?" Taiqing Yunluan asked. Xiao Dai was even more annoyed with her. "Dangerous? Any one of them can eat you. If you don't want to die, you'd better not disturb them." Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Any one of them could kill a powerhouse at the first heaven? "All right, give me the spiritual liquid." Xiao Dai reached out to Suyu, her face full of grievance. "My teeth are sore from grinding them." Everyone present felt sorry for her. Their ears were sore from hearing it, let alone grinding their teeth. Even Suyu could not bear to deduct her hard-earned money, so he gave her 10 drops. Xiao Dai held the blood of the ancient god, Jiulong, happily, as if she had found a treasure. She rolled her eyes at Suyu. "You didn't break your promise this time. Next time you can't handle it, call me out." After saying that, she returned to the 9-jade spiritual pearl happily to enjoy the delicious food. "You heard it? Don't be careless, and don't alert the ferocious insects below," Suyu said. He then came to the notch and carefully flew over. The rest of the people followed closely, afraid that they would startle the little worm in the groove. Suyu stopped at one end of the notch and thought for a moment. He then left the talisman and hid it in a secret place. At the end of the hall was a crystal statue. The shape of the stone statue was sinister, and it was extremely evil and greedy. Its 2 pitch-black eyes were like black holes, and they seemed to have a mind of their own as they stared at Chu Feng. "Taolatai." Everyone present recognized it. This was especially true for Luo Shui, Bai Wanqing, Yongye Chu Xue, and Yongye Wuheng, because they had personally fought against the Tao Tai. That peerless and invincible heaven devouring might was still fresh in their memories. Suyu's eyes flickered, as if he wasn't surprised at all. Creak! The statue seemed to have sensed something. It slowly opened its huge mouth, revealing a deep tunnel. Surprisingly, it was an entrance somewhere. Suyu took a deep breath. "We're almost there." Everyone flashed into it and instantly appeared in a blood-red square. The square was surrounded by endless cliffs. Looking up, they couldn't see the end of the cliffs. All they could see was darkness. Where the cliffs and the square connected, there was a ring-shaped dry riverbed. Traces of the God Realm's water could be vaguely seen. Does the god realm's water finally flow out from here? Suyu stood on the riverbed and looked down. He found that under the riverbed, there was a bottomless abyss. He didn't know where the god realm's water ended up. Everyone looked at it and was amazed. In other words, this place is actually stuck in the middle of the abyss. Suyu nodded. Indeed, his eyes looked at the center of the square and were attracted by a blood-red coffin. In fact, there was only one coffin in such a large square. It was hard not to be attracted. The Moonwatch sect master's pupils shrank slightly. What an evil coffin. There seems to be some kind of very evil creature in it. Bang! Bang! All of a sudden, the inside of the coffin vibrated slightly. Creak! The blood-red lid of the coffin was pushed up by something, which made an obscure sound. Then, numerous runes flashed around the coffin and on the lid. The evil spirit in the coffin seemed to be suppressed, and the lid was closed with a bang. However, the evil spirit in the coffin was struggling restlessly. Maybe it hadn't come into contact with other creatures for a long time. Through the coffin, the harsh sound of claws scratching the coffin echoed in the square, which made people's teeth ache. Let's go. Suyu stared at the coffin vigilantly. Then, he flew up into the sky. Just at this moment, a cracking sound came from the other side of the square. An exit appeared on the opposite side of Suyu. Several figures stepped out from it. They were the Nimo, Yongye Juyong, and the others. Except for the Nimo, the others were all wounded. Yongye Juyong had lost half his arm. Even a powerful Nimo looked quite embarrassed. Hideous wounds could be vaguely seen on his body. It seemed he had been bitten by some ferocious creature. It seemed they were too careless when they passed through the groove of the ferocious worm, which caused the ferocious worm to attack them. Huh. Is this the place where that woman was imprisoned? Nimo looked around and laughed out loud. His laughter was full of pride. Only when he noticed a few special auras did his laughter stop abruptly. When he looked over, he was shocked. It's you. He never expected that Suyu and the others, who were supposed to be trapped in the periphery of the maze, were still alive. Instead, they arrived here before him. However, the Nimo laughed loudly. The heavens are following my wishes. I felt it was a pity that you, Suyu, were taken advantage of. I didn't expect that you would come to me again. The Nimo was full of hatred and murderous intentions. Now, you have nowhere to run, right? The oppressive might of an overlord came crashing down like a flood. Suyu felt suffocated at the same time. He felt as if thousands of giant mountains were on his back. His breathing was so heavy that it was hard for him to breathe. If they fought face to face, Suyu would be killed in a second. Alarm bells went off in Suyu's head. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto the blood coffin that had suddenly quietened down. He rolled his eyes and said, Nimo, I have a secret. I don't know if you want to know. The Nimo laughed. Suyu, your little trick of stalling for time is useless against me. I have existed since the beginning of the world. The people I have seen are beyond your imagination. I only have one way to deal with dangerous and unfathomable creatures like you. That is to end the battle quickly. Fate reversing formula. The Nimo growled, and a round wheel of alternating yin and yang appeared behind him. The round wheel was pushed, and a mysterious power was born. Suyu's silver hair was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. His skin was loosening and aging rapidly. His back was gradually hunched and slack. His entire person was aging rapidly. Suyu was horrified. He could clearly feel that his vitality was fading away at an alarming rate. It was as if the process of his life had sped up 1,000 times, and he had aged overnight. His heart was filled with alarm bells, and the dragon of life flew out uncontrollably, emitting rich vitality to slow down the aging process. Intuition told Suyu that if he died like this, time reversal would be useless even if he were to come back to life. In other words, he would really die. He had not felt the threat of death for a long time. Suyu gritted his teeth and growled, "Go." The world annihilation plate, which had just been fully activated, flew out from his sleeves. It turned out that he had been stalling for time to activate this item. The world annihilation plate drew a pitch-black mark in the sky. The Animo laughed, unafraid. Haha, I am different from the past. A mere replica of the World Annihilation Plate cannot harm me at all. But he realized that the trajectory of the World Annihilation Plate had changed without warning and was shooting towards the center of the square. At that moment, the Animo realized that there was a strange blood coffin there. As an evil spirit, the Animo could feel how dangerous the existence in the blood coffin was. His face darkened. Bastard, trying to shift the blame? However, when he understood Su Yu's intentions, it was too late. The replica of the World Annihilation Plate was indestructible, and it destroyed the cover of the blood coffin on the spot. Without the seal on the coffin cover to suppress it, the evil creature in the blood coffin was finally freed. Bang! Sure enough, with a loud noise, the blood coffin was torn apart. The fishy, dark green corpse water splattered in all directions. A deep, murderous aura erupted like a volcano, enveloping the entire area. Even the Nimo had a grave look on his face as he stared at the blood coffin. In the dark green corpse water, there was a 30-meter-tall creature lying. Its body was like that of a human, and its entire body was covered in dark red hair. Its 2 hands were extremely long, with jet-black fingers and sharp black nails that were half a meter long. They were sharp and full of poison. The creature's corpse moved without any wind, slowly floating up from the ground. Its tightly shut eyes opened slowly, revealing a pair of pale, lifeless eyes. 10 extremely sharp, eerie, ghostly claws swayed in a disorderly manner, like 10 dancing, poisonous snakes. Its head turned stiffly, making a creaking sound. Its pale eyes glanced at the creatures present, and a low, longing sound came from its throat. At the same time, waves of desolation power surged from its body, like a tsunami, from weak to strong, rolling in all directions. In the midst of the desolation power, everyone felt a sense of insignificance. It was as if the other party could destroy them 1,000,000 times over with a single thought. The disparity between the levels made their hearts tremble. Suyu was shocked. Only one kind of creature could possess the desolation power, and that was the Animo's face was even more solemn than Suyu's. He said in a low voice, "The corpse of a divine being, the corpse of a divine being, the corpse of a divine being of heaven and earth." The red-haired corpse's pale eyes revealed a look of confusion. He looked down at his body and at his ghostly claws, and a hoarse, intermittent sound came from his throat. "Blood. I want to drink." As he spoke, behind the Nimo, a psychopathic member of the Eternal Night royal family suddenly let out a shrill scream. A black shadow escaped from his body and returned to the Nimo's body. The member of the royal family had turned into a bag of bones, and his vitality had been extinguished. The red-haired corpse's mouth was full of bright, divine blood. He wiped his lips, and the hoarse sound in his throat became much clearer. "Delicious. I want to drink more." Suyu's feet emitted wisps of cold air. He did not see him move at all, but the member of the royal family was strangely sucked dry of his flesh and blood. He understood that it was not that the red-haired corpse did not move, but that Suyu's cultivation could not capture his movements at all. Hearing the hoarse sound, Suyu's face changed dramatically. He gathered everyone and immediately used the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole to escape. However, the moment he moved, a ghostly claw landed on his shoulder without warning. Chapter 1569. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. His hair stood on end. The divine energy in his body was boiling involuntarily. The 8,000 divine paths that he had practiced appeared automatically. A great sense of danger was beating wildly in his chest. However, right at this moment, the wind suddenly disappeared. A miserable scream came from the rebel demon's side. Another person from the Empire of Darkness had died tragically. Suyu fixed his eyes on the direction of the attack and was confused. The target of the red-haired corpse should have been Suyu. Why did he change his target halfway? The rebel demon was furious. He stared at Suyu viciously. "You deserve to die." In a panic, the rebel demon rushed to the top of the cliff with Yongye Juyong. As for the ordinary people, they fled in all directions under the rebel demon's control. The red-haired corpse pounced on them randomly. Miserable screams could be heard everywhere. The rebel demon seized the opportunity to escape from the platform. Suyu rushed to the top of the cliff before the rebel demon did. After half an hour, the top of the endless cliff finally appeared. It was a floating island. It was purple gold in color and looked like a beast core. It was extremely huge. Suyu jumped onto the island. Immediately, a chilly wind blew over. What entered his sight was an incomparably huge black mountain. Every mountain was entangled by a dense number of chains. It seemed that something in the mountains was sealed by chains. Suyu looked at the nearest mountain. After observing it for a while, he was secretly surprised. Suyu was quite familiar with that mountain. There was a similar mountain in the world of Yonye Chioma's cavern. When Suyu dug it out, he found a giant head that had been suppressed for countless years. The mountain in front of him was even bigger. However, it gave Suyu a feeling that it was just a small mountain. When Suyu flew over a giant mountain, he saw the situation in it from the top. Although he had prepared himself mentally, he was still shocked. Looking down from the top, it was not a mountain at all. In fact, it was a giant creature that was tens of millions of feet tall. They had died a long time ago. However, their bodies were not destroyed. Even the sky and the earth could not bury them. They had survived until now and turned into mountains. The strangest thing was that they looked exactly the same as a statue that Suyu had seen in the labyrinth. When Suyu flew over another mountain, the situation was similar. Looking at the densely packed islands and the lofty mountains that were entangled by chains, Suyu's eyes were filled with shock. Where exactly is this place? Why did you imprison so many powerful creatures until their deaths? All of a sudden, a powerful ripple could be felt. Suyu's heart shuddered, and he restrained his aura, leading the crowd stealthily. After flying over hundreds of giant mountains, Suyu was attracted to the center of the island. There was also a giant mountain. What was different was that this mountain was not deathly still, but an iceberg. The iceberg was 70 million feet tall, 7 times the height of an ordinary mountain. Terrifying cold air poured down from the ice mountain, freezing the surrounding mountains into snowy mountains. In front of the dazzling ice mountain, there was a living being using a powerful divine ability to attack the ice mountain. Every time, the iceberg would tremble, and a crack would appear on its surface. He, evil woman, I've waited for 100 million years, and I'm finally going to get what I wanted. The creature laughed excitedly as it attacked. After several attacks, the ice mountain crumbled with a loud bang, revealing the items sealed within. It was a small courtyard surrounded by chains. The strange thing was that the small courtyard was full of vitality. Butterflies fluttered and flowers bloomed, as if someone was taking care of it. It was hard to believe that this small courtyard had been sealed in the ice mountain for 100 million years. The creature's eyes were filled with excitement as he laughed. Evil girl, come out. This empress has waited for this day for far too long. Suyu was watching intently when his eyebrows twitched all of a sudden. Without hesitation, he moved away from his original spot. Bang! As soon as he retreated, the place where he had been immediately suffered a fatal attack. It was shattered by a mysterious palm print. Suyu turned around and saw that it was that creature who had attacked. It turned out that he had noticed Suyu long ago, but he had remained silent and continued to attract Suyu's attention with his clone. His main body circled behind Suyu and gave him a fatal blow. Unexpectedly, Suyu's vigilance was exceptional, and he managed to avoid the attack. Suyu looked at him, and when he saw Suyu, he cried out in surprise, "Suyu, how did you get here?" Suyu stood up straight and looked at him calmly. "Haha, why am I not surprised to meet you here? Mermaid Emperor, or should I address you as the World Annihilation Emperor?" This person was none other than the reincarnation of the World Annihilation Emperor, who was still watering the Brahma puppets. The World Annihilation Emperor rolled his eyes and said, "Suyu, listen to my explanation. I just found out that the evil girl was actually sealed here. When I heard the news, I rushed over immediately." Hearing this, Suyu smiled faintly. "Oh, do you think I will believe you?" "Of course not. The World Annihilation Emperor took a few steps forward, his face suddenly fierce, and he suddenly disappeared from his original spot. So you could not see his trajectory at all. Buzz. Without any time to think, Suyu summoned the Tai East Emperor Bell and shrouded himself in it. At this moment, the Tai East Emperor Bell was struck by a horrifying attack. The entire Tai East Emperor Bell was vibrating violently. Even the inverse demon might not be able to cause such a commotion. The sneak attack failed, and the figure of the World Annihilation Emperor appeared. His eyes were a strange blue, like a hunter in the night, dangerous and sharp. He looked at the Tai East Emperor Bell and said coldly, "You reacted quickly." Suyu stared at him with his hands behind his back and said, "You hid your strength well." When the inverse demon was born and destroyed the world, the strength he showed was not even 1/10 of this palm. At that time, he clearly had the ability to kill the inverse demon with one palm, but he pretended to be weak. The World Annihilation Emperor said coldly, "Suyu, I admire you very much. As long as you do not interfere with my important matters, I can let you live." Suyu said calmly, "Important matters? Haha, planning for 100 million years, betraying the other 8 divine warriors of heaven and earth, and sacrificing the lives of the people of the God realm?" The World Annihilation Emperor's eyes, which had softened a lot, suddenly became fierce and murderous. "What do you know?" Suyu's face fell. "It seems that I guessed right. He was lying just now, and the World Annihilation Emperor was caught off guard." The World Annihilation Emperor knew that he had been tricked and snorted coldly. "Mind your own business." Shaking his head, Suyu said, "I have been wondering who had the ability to tamper with the historical records of the descendants of the 9 divine warriors, and who could collect the flesh and blood of the 9 divine warriors to forge the 9 Emperor tablet. It turns out that it was the first of the 9 divine warriors, the World Annihilation Emperor." What a surprising truth. Now that he thought about it, the World Annihilation Emperor spared no expense to fabricate the rumor that the sinful girl was sealed in the ancient tomb. His purpose was very simple and clear. That was to draw the attention of all living beings to the ancient tomb. In this way, no one would pay attention to this place. In fact, if the water of the God realm had not flowed out of the cave here, no one would have noticed this place. Suyu admired the depth of his calculations. He was indeed worthy of being the first divine warrior of the past. The World Annihilation Emperor sneered proudly. "The first divine warrior is still a divine warrior after all. How can I, the World Annihilation Emperor, be mediocre forever? If I want to be like the ancient god Jiolong, the supreme ancient god who dominated the primitive world." Therefore, he planned everything to lure the sinful girl and then to seal her. He wanted to obtain something from the sinful girl and achieve his goal of breaking away from the divine warrior and ascending to a higher level. However, for some unknown reason, there was a change. The sinful girl was indeed sealed, but the World Annihilation Emperor had also fallen. A trace of his obsession was not extinguished and awakened from the tomb guard spirit. He, an eerie sneer like the sound of metal rubbing against metal, came unexpectedly. The inverse demon revealed his true form behind a mountain. With a faint smile, he said, "No wonder you were so afraid of me coming into the world. I was thinking that you were actually afraid that I would compete with you for the sinful girl, weren't you?" If there was one thing that the inverse demon was most terrifying about, it was possession. The stronger the host he possessed, the more terrifying the inverse demon would be. And the inverse demon understood this very well. It was the inverse demon's instinct to look for a stronger host to possess. If the inverse demon came into the world, there was no doubt that he would lay his hands on the sealed sinful girl. To the World Annihilation Emperor, it was tantamount to a great deal of trouble. Therefore, for the sake of the common people in the world, it was only an excuse for the World Annihilation Emperor. In fact, he was doing it for himself. However, the inverse demon still came into the world. Moreover, unsurprisingly, he sensed the presence of the sinful girl and came here. The World Annihilation Emperor's eyes turned cold. "Inverse demon, you've experienced my methods long ago. If you don't want to sleep for another 100 million years, Get lost right now. Ah, even your original body couldn't do anything to me back then. Now, what can a remnant of your soul do to me? The inverse demon sneered disdainfully. The sinful girl belongs to me. If you know what's good for you, get lost right now. The World Annihilation Emperor's murderous intent surged, and the aura around him was astonishing. It seems that I can only enjoy the delicacy after I get rid of this annoying fly. Swish! The World Annihilation Emperor disappeared into thin air. In terms of eeriness, he was second only to the red-haired corpse. The inverse demon wasn't weak either. With a sinister sneer, he disappeared without a trace. In the void, roars and roars came, turning the sky above the entire island upside down. Suyu's eyes flashed. He wisely chose to bide his time and watch the tigers fight. The two powerful beings, both with Overlord-level magical powers, were engaged in an earth-shattering battle. Before long, the inverse demon retreated from the void with a roar. He was covered in wounds and panting heavily. The World Annihilation Emperor, on the other hand, was not panting at all. He sneered. If you had possessed an emperor's body, I might have been afraid of you. Unfortunately, a mere lower deity is not qualified to compete with me. Get lost. The inverse demon looked indignant, and his rebellious intent exploded. Humph! You can't kill me. As long as I'm here, don't even think about taking the sinful girl. The World Annihilation Emperor frowned deeply, and his anger was overflowing. Do you really want to go against me to the end? The inverse demon laughed coldly. If you take the sinful girl, that will be the day I die. The two sides were in a heated argument, and neither was willing to give in. Roar! All of a sudden, the strange roar of the red-haired corpse came from the abyss below. The inverse demon's expression changed slightly, and he said in a low voice, "That emperor's corpse is coming up soon. With his strength, it's only a matter of time before he eats you and me. Are you sure you want to fight me here?" The World Annihilation Emperor frowned deeply. He wasn't willing either. However, it was impossible for him to give in to the sinful girl. All of a sudden, the World Annihilation Emperor glanced at Suyu, who was watching the tigers fight from the sidelines. He was furious. However, in a split second, an idea came to his mind. He said, "Inverse Demon, you and I both have the ability to absorb the sinful girl's pathfire. Neither of us can rest easy with anyone entering the seal. Why don't we find someone to bring the sinful girl out? Whoever gets the sinful girl will have to depend on their own abilities." Upon hearing that, the inverse demon pondered and nodded in agreement. All right. However, the person who enters must not have the ability to absorb the pathfire. Then, who do you want to go? The inverse demon asked. Chapter 1570. He looked at Suyu leisurely. The inverse demon was stunned, and his face was filled with hatred. But after thinking about it, he agreed without hesitation. Haha, are you talking about Suyu? If it's him, I won't object. Oh, the eyes of the World Annihilation Emperor flickered slightly. The inverse demon's straightforwardness made him feel that something was not right. However, the World Annihilation Emperor was confident. Haha, then it's all up to us now. The two of them landed at the same time, one on the left and one on the right side of the Tai Eastern Emperor Bell. You heard everything? This is your only chance of survival. Suyu's eyes flickered as he wondered. Let me enter the seal and bring out the sinful girl? This was exactly what he wanted. Based on their tone, sinful woman was currently sealed and didn't have the strength to fight back, so digging out the blood of her Dowlord was as easy as blowing off dust. How could Suyu reject such a good thing? It's not impossible for me to help you rescue the sinful woman, but if you want to place a seal on my body or something that can threaten my life, then forget it, Suyu said warily. The World Annihilation Emperor chuckled. Killing you is as easy as flipping my hand. Why would I need to rely on restrictions? As for the NIMO, it depends on him. The inverse demon said straightforwardly. I never rely on restrictions to kill. That was for the best. After pausing for a moment, Suyu asked, May I ask, what are the characteristics of the seal on the sinful woman's body? The World Annihilation Dragon had said that the sinful lady was about to break out of seclusion. Suyu had to worry about whether the seal on her was still intact. The World Annihilation Emperor said calmly. Between her brows, there is an engraving of a crystal coin. If the engraving is still there, it means that the seal is still there. If the seal disappeared, then she would be free. After muttering to himself irresolutely for a moment, Suyu nodded. Then, please step back for the time being. The World Annihilation Emperor and the Inverse Demon had a tacit understanding and retreated far away. Suyu brought the Tai East Emperor Bell to the edge of the sealed courtyard. Out of caution, he first tried to use his divine power, magic treasures, and even a strand of his soul. After discovering that he could safely pass through the seal, he took a step forward. The World Annihilation Emperor frowned slightly, and the murderous intent in the depths of his eyes deepened. Suyu's caution and vigilance had a different meaning in the eyes of a creature like him who had lived for billions of years. He had seen too many prodigies who became famous overnight, and he had also seen young talents who had stunned several generations. However, those who could grow up were as rare as phoenix feathers and Chelan horns. Most of them died while growing up, and those who eventually became heaven masters all had one thing in common. They were cautious. Obviously, with his experience, he could see Suyu's future potential, and he could also see that Suyu could live longer than ordinary heaven rulers. The probability of him becoming a giant god was not low. With such a potential threat, the World Annihilation Emperor's desire to get rid of him grew even stronger. The Inverse Demon's eyes flickered. The cold smile on his lips deepened. Suyu sensed the subtle changes in the gazes of the two people behind him, so he quietly stepped into the small courtyard. Immediately, the warm sunlight shone on his body, and the refreshing fragrance of flowers wafted into his nose. Being in it, Suyu felt very peaceful and warm. However, he would not forget that the creature in the small courtyard was the infamous sinful lady who had once destroyed the entire god realm. An indifferent existence who had slaughtered trillions of creatures and regarded the common people as insignificant ants. After hundreds of millions of years, there are still old friends who remember me. A sweet and melodious voice of a woman, like the sound of nature, drifted into his ears. Suyu was stunned. What a beautiful voice. Of all the women's voices he had heard in his life, none could be compared to the voice in the house. That wonderful voice, which seemed to come from a fairy palace, was intoxicating. No matter how beautiful the music of the world was, it could not compare to her casual words. Was such a woman really vicious and evil, the sinful lady who destroyed the god realm? A thought echoed in Suyu's mind. However, it was quickly extinguished by him. One cannot judge a book by its cover, let alone a mere voice. With a trace of indifference, Suyu pushed open the door and saw a simple bedroom. Pots, bowls, ladles, and basins were all available. On the edge of the bed, a slender woman with shoulder-length black hair sat alone. Her back was graceful, and her clothes were as white as snow, spotless. At first glance, she looked like a trapped fairy dressed in white, and it was very tempting. Suyu stared at her indifferently and said, "Sinful lady, I have heard a lot about you." Since coming to the Lost God realm, he had heard of the name Sinful Lady. Today, he finally saw her in person. The Sinful Lady was lowering her head and fiddling with a communication artifact, which was exactly the same as the one in the ancient tomb. On the other side of the artifact, the roar of the World Annihilation Dragon could be heard. He was still besieged by the common people. It sounded like he was much weaker than he used to be. An elephant was indeed stronger than an ant. No matter how many ants there were, they could not do anything to it. However, when an ant fell down and could not move, there was a limit to how strong it was. It was only a matter of time before it became food for the ants. With a tap of her hand, the Sinful Lady turned off the communication artifact, raised her head, slowly turned around, and said, "I have been paying attention to your breath for a long time." A dazzling face was facing Suyu. Just like in a long flow of time and space, there was a mysterious brilliance on the Sinful Lady's face, making it impossible to see through her face. Suyu was slightly regretful. He wanted to see the true face of the Sinful Lady. However, it was no longer important. "Is that so?" Suyu said lightly. With a flip of his palm, he took out the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword. The blade was extremely sharp. The sinful lady was quiet and calm. She said, "Are you here to kill me too?" Shaking his head, Suyu said, "Whether you live or die, I don't care. I only want a drop of the Pathmaster's blood." The sinful lady said quietly, "My blood? What for?" "To save someone." Suyu stared at her forehead. Although the brilliance was diffusing, a crystal-colored coin engraving appeared. Strangely, when he saw the coin clearly, Suyu's heart moved slightly. "Is it your beloved woman?" The sinful lady was calm. Although her eyes were isolated from the fog, they seemed to be able to see through the depths of Suyu's heart. Suyu suddenly felt as if his soul was being peeped at. His eyes became sharp, and he stabbed forward with his sword. "I'm sorry." The sword light was like a rainbow, leaving only a cold silver light as the blade stabbed towards her shoulder. He only needed a drop of the Pathmaster's blood. However, at that moment, the sinful lady slowly got up and sighed. "I didn't want to leave any of you alive." She calmly stretched out her two jade-like fingers and casually clamped the silver sword between her fingers. Suyu felt as if the sword had stabbed into the indestructible giant's body. The long sword could not penetrate even an inch. The impact of his whole body was rebounded onto her body, causing it to shake violently and fly backward. The silver sword in his hand flew out of his hand and into the sinful lady's palm. Was this the sinful lady in a sealed state? She was no match for the inverse demon or the world annihilation emperor. All of a sudden, Suyu's face changed. His eyes focused on her forehead, and his expression was extremely ugly. The crystal-colored coin engraving had disappeared without him knowing. In fact, she had already broken free from the seal long before they had arrived. The sinful lady standing in front of Suyu was not the sealed sinful lady, but the sinful lady in her peak condition. An extremely strong pressure enveloped Suyu, and he had the illusion that he would be crushed and turned into dust in an instant. At that moment, the pressure was withdrawn, and the sinful lady walked gracefully towards Suyu like a gust of wind. Suyu's heart was beating rapidly. The pressure just now was released by the sinful lady unintentionally. If she really wanted to, she could kill Suyu countless times with a single thought. The sinful lady sized Suyu up. Her powerful gaze saw through his entire body. She said, "Your whole body is full of treasures. You have many legacies and 8,000 divine paths. How surprising." She said she was surprised, but her tone did not reveal any of it. "What I care about the most is the scent of an old friend." The sinful lady looked at Suyu and crooked her finger. The 9-jade spiritual pearl opened automatically, and a black book flew out from it. Suyu's face changed. He grabbed it with one hand and said, "Don't touch it." However, the book flew into the sinful lady's palm in an instant. The grade of the book was low, and any of the heaven and earth treasures that Suyu had were worth 100 times more than it. However, to Suyu, this book was an irreplaceable part of his life. The Starry Sky Heavenly Book. The sinful lady opened the book, and the flashy events of the Jinlong continent flashed before her eyes like light and shadow. The sinful lady said, "What's the point of concentrating on recording the scenes of the ordinary cavern world? It doesn't seem like something she would do." Suyu operated the power of space and snatched the Starry Sky Heavenly Book back. This was Xia Jingyu's eyes, which had replaced his, and she had seen all the prosperity of the world. It was the deepest bond between Suyu and her. To outsiders, it was meaningless, but to Suyu, it would affect his life. The sinful lady did not stop him and let Suyu take it back. She said, "I didn't expect that she would still be alive." Suyu was puzzled. Could the scent of an old friend that the sinful lady had mentioned be Xia Jingyu? He remembered that Yun Yazi had also said that he hoped Suyu would forget Xia Jingyu, and that there would be no future between them. He recalled the two portraits of the mature and charming Xia Jingyu, as well as the red-robed Xia Jingyu, who had saved Suyu by chance in the reverse flow of time and space. Who exactly was Xia Jingyu? It seemed that from the very beginning, she had been unfathomable and unfathomable. Now, even the sinful lady knew her. However, it looks like she's going to die soon, the sinful lady said faintly as she looked at the black hair wrapped around Suyu's index finger. Suyu wanted to inquire further, but the inverse demon's impatient scolding came from the outside world at an inopportune time. Su, come out now. Don't play any tricks. The sinful lady raised her eyes and looked outside the courtyard. She said faintly, "You're disturbing my peace." She turned her head to look at Suyu. At this moment, although Suyu could not see her eyes, he could feel that she was considering whether or not to kill him. Suyu's hair stood on end, and he secretly tightened his grip on the door of time. "Seeing that you and she are fated to be together, I will let you live. However, you are not allowed to leave my side for the time being," the sinful lady said. A crystal-colored mark appeared between her brows. She said, "Take me out." Suyu wiped his sweat. Seeing this, he could not help but mourn for the inverse demon and the world annihilation emperor. Swish! Bringing the sinful lady with him, Suyu left the sealed courtyard. The world annihilation emperor was extremely vigilant. He stared at the coin mark between the sinful lady's brows from afar and heaved a sigh of relief. After a flash of light, he sped over. The inverse demon's reaction was not slow either. He shouted from afar, "Su, throw the sinful lady over here, and I will let you live." The world annihilation emperor sneered. "Do you think he will listen to you?" The inverse demon laughed. "Do you think he will listen to you?" Chapter 1571. The world annihilation plate replica in Suyu's bosom was activated without any warning. 10,000 rays of white light burst forth and sealed Suyu and the sinful woman within it. The world annihilation plate could transform into a cage. Also, when could the world annihilation emperor control Suyu's treasure? All of a sudden, Suyu recalled that the world annihilation emperor had personally demonstrated the power of the world annihilation plate in front of the celestial crystal mountains. He must have tampered with the replica of the world annihilation plate. At the crucial moment, he could kill Suyu by surprise or trap him like what was happening now. Haha. I've only taught you the first form of the world annihilation plate. I've never taught you the second form, have I? The world annihilation emperor's eyes shone with a profound light. Without a doubt, the cage was the second form of the world annihilation plate. Under his control, the cage flew rapidly toward the world annihilation emperor. The inverse demon's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Huh, what a coincidence. I think he will listen to me too." Behind Suyu, a 10,000 feet tall godly Laksana appeared out of nowhere. It was the divine Laksana of the heaven-defying divine warrior. The world annihilation emperor's face darkened. "I almost forgot that you once possessed the heaven-defying divine warrior and can control half of his consciousness." The heaven-defying divine warrior's dharma form suddenly went out of control and attacked the cage on its own. Under the impact of the great power of chaos, the cage shook. Although it was not damaged, it stopped flying toward the world annihilation emperor. The inverse demon took the opportunity to fly over and snatch the cage away. "Evil creature, how dare you!" The world annihilation emperor shouted and flew over to snatch it. The inverse demon laughed. "It's too late. This demon has kept this as a backup plan for too long. It has finally come in handy." As he laughed, he licked his lips and stared deeply at the sinful woman. Greed and excitement filled the depths of his eyes, and even his voice couldn't help but tremble. "Sinful woman of the temple of heaven, I've heard a lot about you. Since I, the inverse devil, was born, I've never tried to possess a Tao master's body. Ha! My long-cherished wish of many years has finally been fulfilled today." "Stop!" The world annihilation emperor roared, as if he knew what the inverse demon was going to do. Unfortunately, it was too late. The inverse demon stretched out two black shadows and entangled the evil girl. The world annihilation emperor was furious. "You're courting death." He had planned for countless years when he was alive. He did not hesitate to betray the other 8 sovereigns and the common people, just to obtain the evil girl's Tao fire. But in the end, it was all for the inverse demons. World annihilation divine eye. The World Annihilation Emperor's eyes widened and were filled with a layer of gray light. When it landed on the inverse demon's body, it turned him into stone and his life was extinguished. This was the most powerful divine technique of the World Annihilation Emperor, also known as the petrifying divine eye. Any living being that met its gaze would be petrified and destroyed. It was extremely terrifying. Even the inverse demon was no exception. Oomph. The World Annihilation Emperor laughed scornfully. Just as he was about to snatch the cage, there was a cracking sound. The inverse will in the petrified inverse demon's body surged and instantly broke through the petrification technique. Ha ha! The World Annihilation Emperor. You can't do anything to me. I have already taken over Sinful Lady's body. Then IMO laughed out loud. His legs were wrapped around Sinful Lady's legs, and he flew towards Sinful Lady. The World Annihilation Emperor roared angrily, but it was to no avail. He could only watch helplessly as his countless years of hard work became the inverse demon. Let me see how powerful the body of Sinful Lady Path Master is. The inverse demon laughed excitedly. However, the next moment, the inverse demon suddenly let out a shrill scream. His entire black body was constantly emitting greenish-yellow smoke. Your consciousness. You have been sealed. The inverse demon seemed to have been electrocuted. His entire body retreated and returned to Yongye Chioma's body. However, the inverse demon's black body was suddenly frozen in the air. Together with the surrounding space-time, it was frozen forever. The unexpected change stunned the World Annihilation Emperor. The resentful expression on his face was replaced by astonishment. When he looked at Sinful Lady and noticed the area between her brows, his body trembled violently. He gasped and said, "You have broken free from the seal?" Perhaps it was fear, but his teeth were chattering and he could not speak clearly. His face was ashen. Without thinking, he turned around and fled. However, he had only taken a few steps when a layer of ice covered him from the soles of his feet. It spread to his upper body until his entire body was frozen, leaving only his face exposed. "It's rare for us to meet again. Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Sinful Lady said. Her voice was calm and as beautiful as heavenly music. The World Annihilation Emperor clenched his teeth. Fear and despair filled his face. "Tell me, who taught you in the past?" Sinful Lady raised her hand, and the cage automatically returned to the form of a replica of the World Annihilation Plate. She held in her palm and played with it lightly. The World Annihilation Emperor said in a low voice, "I don't understand." Sinful Lady looked at him with her snow-white eyes. Her spotless white robe fluttered gently. "It doesn't matter if you don't understand, as long as you remember." She did not move. The World Annihilation Emperor's face was also covered in ice. Then, with a dull cracking sound, the ice sculpture that the World Annihilation Emperor had turned into shattered into countless sparkling ice crystals. She grabbed with her lily-white hand, and a piece of ice crystal fell into her palm, melting into a puddle of water. Within the puddle of water, a blurry image filled the air. A handsome man with white feathers on his back and blue eyes, who was noble and otherworldly, was teaching the World Annihilation Emperor. All of a sudden, the handsome man with white feathers seemed to have sensed it. His palm brushed past the image, and the image became blurry. After watching it, Sinful Lady stood there for a long time. She murmured in a voice that only Suyu could hear, "Prince Xiaoyao, you really schemed against me." Unfortunately, Suyu was shocked by the death of the World Annihilation Emperor and did not ponder the meaning of the words Prince Xiaoyao. With a single thought, the reincarnation of the Star River Overlord level World Annihilation Emperor was dead. Moreover, the inverse demon had obviously entangled the body of Sinful Lady, but Sinful Lady was not affected at all. How strong was she? Suyu secretly grasped the Gate of Time and slowly let go. No, he must not activate the Gate of Time. With the great disparity between them, Sinful Lady had already discovered it before the Gate of Time was activated. The premise was that Sinful Lady was in a sealed state. But now that Sinful Lady had broken the seal, he could not act rashly. Otherwise, All his previous efforts would be wasted, and Yun Yazi would be implicated. Suddenly, Sinful Lady cast her indifferent gaze at Suyu. "There's a murderous aura on you." Suyu shuddered and immediately restrained the murderous intent in his heart. Sinful Lady stared at Suyu for a while, then raised her jade-like fingers. In the distance, the inverse demon followed the footsteps of the World Annihilation Emperor and turned into ice crystal fragments. Suyu's hair stood on end, and a sense of danger arose in the depths of his heart. Sinful Lady wanted to kill him. It was too late to say anything, so you took out a handful of coins without hesitation. They were bronze, silver, and gold, and he threw them at Sinful Lady. Sinful Lady's eyes were still as calm as the clouds, but her words were full of murderous intent. "I have changed my mind and want to kill the third person. I don't know why, but you give me a sense of unease." Thump, thump. So you seemed to be able to hear the sound of his heart beating violently, and the sense of danger in his heart was extremely intense. The next moment, he would be erased from the world, just like the World Annihilation Emperor and the Inverse Demon. However, the handful of coins that Suyu threw out emitted a wonderful halo, which enveloped Sinful Lady in 3 layers of light. Between Sinful Lady's brows, a crystal-colored coin engraving was faintly discernible. The sense of fear of destruction and death was immediately weakened. Suyu's heart skipped a beat, and he broke out in a cold sweat. He had guessed correctly. The coins inside the chest of the stone statue really had a hidden power. They were the second guarantee of sealing Sinful Lady. When he saw the crystal-colored coin appear between Sinful Lady's brows, Suyu had a thought. Now it seemed that collecting the coins was a wise decision. Sinful Lady was slightly surprised, but only slightly. Quick thinking, not bad. Sinful Lady nodded gently. With a wave of her jade-like fingers, the brilliance of the bronze coins was extinguished. With another wave, the silver-white brilliance was extinguished. Only the golden radiance was able to extinguish it after being tapped 3 times. However, as soon as the 3 layers of brilliance were extinguished, Suyu threw out 3 coins of different colors and sealed it again. Sinful Lady was expressionless, and she merely extinguished the brilliance. Suyu did not hesitate anymore and immediately summoned the Gate of Time. The Gate of Time opened, and a vast, ocean-like breath of time and space assaulted his face. It was as if behind this gate was an entrance that connected billions of years of time and space. There is righteousness in the world, and it is mixed and popular, a sonorous and powerful righteousness that had penetrated billions of years of time and space, reverberated from the reverse flow of time and space. In the God realm, in the Lost Nation, the long swords at the waists of many creatures left their owners and faced the direction of the Gate of Time. The tips of the swords faced up, and the hilts faced down, as if they were protecting the Emperor of the Swords. The Azura sword on Suyu's body and the 9 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords were also uncontrollably facing the Gate of Time. That posture was like a pilgrimage to their Emperor. At that moment, the surging sword energy from the great wilderness broke through the reverse flow of time and space, reaching the other side of billions of years. An old man clad in a black robe and covered in monstrous, demonic chi stepped out of the stone door with a wooden sword on his back. His face was old, but his eyes were like lightning, containing a depth that could see through the vicissitudes of time. Brother Demonic Sword. Suyu was shocked by the reaction of the world's famous swords when he appeared. Demonic Sword Wia nodded, his gaze fixed on Sinful Lady. His eyes were filled with sharp sword energy, and his pupils were faintly visible as swords. Sinful Lady. Demonic Sword Wuya stared at her and said, "I finally get to see you." Sinful Lady was slightly surprised. She looked him up and down and said calmly, "You have endured billions of years of time at the cost of being reduced to ashes, just to see me once?" Demonic Sword Wuya nodded and pulled out the wooden sword on his back. He said softly, "I have to give you a sword, on behalf of my father, and on behalf of the billions of innocent souls who perished at your hands." 9 Suns Cosmos Sword Formation. Demonic sword Weia waved the wooden sword, bringing out 18 layers of sword shadows. The sword shadows flew everywhere. The top 9 swords formed the Cosmo sword formation, while the bottom 9 formed the 9 Sun sword formation. The two formations merged into one and finally turned into a single sword. It was an ordinary sword style, like the most ordinary sword style of swordsmen who had just entered the martial path. However, it was such a sword style that the sinful lady, who had been expressionless all this while, revealed a look of approval. Sword techniques are extremely simple and have reached the state of perfection. In terms of the profoundness of sword techniques, you have already surpassed the demonic sword emperor of the past. Not bad, not bad. Ding! The wooden sword was pointed at Sinful Lady's chest. With a light sound, Sinful Lady raised her wrist and blocked the sword with the jade bracelet. However, you have made the same mistake as your father. Sinful Lady shook her head and pointed out calmly. No matter how profound a technique is, it is still a technique, and I am the path. So, you will never be able to hurt me. With a light push, Sinful Lady's sword style was dissolved into nothingness. Suyu, who was watching nervously from his side, felt disappointed and even hopeless. A divine warrior of heaven and earth had attacked, yet he still couldn't do anything to the sealed Sinful Lady and extract the Pathmaster's blood. Chapter 1572. Whoosh! It was as if a storm was rolling out from the reverse flow of time and space. Demon Sword Weia was deep within it, as if he had been enlightened, and his eyes shone with a brilliant light. A chain of the Great Path rules descended in a physical form. The chain contained the incomparably mysterious Sword Path rules. However, when the chain of the Great Path approached him, it was immediately pushed away by the mysterious power on the surface of his body. The Sinful Lady frowned slightly. You reject the Sword Path rules. Do you not want to achieve the Path Body? Demon Sword Weia's eyes were clear. He woke up from the enlightenment, and his whole temperament was refreshed. At the beginning of the world, everything was the path. Demon Sword Weia murmured softly, as if he had transcended. The chain of the Great Path rules is the path, but it is also a shackle. The wooden sword rotated, knocking away the approaching heavenly law rules, which disappeared into nothingness. The remaining sword energy overflowed and slashed towards the Sinful Lady. She waved her hand lightly, and a thick chain of the Great Path rippled out from the surface of her body, protecting her whole body. The remaining sword energy splashed, and the chain of the Great Path, as if it had been hit by the Holy Sword Path, collapsed with a single blow. The path of the Sinful Lady was broken, and the sword energy slashed her whole body, leaving a bloody mark on her chest, like a snow-white plum blossom that gradually expanded. Suyu threw out the cavern world that he had prepared long ago and stored a drop of the Pathmaster's blood. The Pathmaster's blood was in his hand. Suyu bowed to the demon Sword Emperor gratefully. Thank you, brother Demon Sword. Suddenly, Suyu was stunned. At this moment, the Demon Sword Emperor held the wooden sword in his hand, and his whole body gradually disintegrated into particles. His aura and life force were quickly disappearing. Suyu looked sad and bowed. Brother Demon Sword, rest in peace. He had been in the reverse flow of time for a long time, and the pressure of time was too great. Now, if he left the time gate, he would be crushed by time. Previously, he had asserted that he could only use one sword. Sure enough, it was only one sword. Unfortunately, it failed to kill the Sinful Lady and only left a wound. Demon Sword Wuya's body was transparent. He stared at Suyu with a smile and said, "Don't be sad. I have been obsessed with the sword path all my life, but I have no fate with the path. Now that I understand the path that belongs to me, I have no more regrets." He cupped his hands to Suyu, leaving behind a hearty laughter that lingered in the sky. Knowing the Tao in the morning, one can die without regrets in the evening. Ha ha, I'm going. The emperor of a generation had stood tall for 100 million years. He had witnessed the prosperity and destruction of the divine realm. He had guarded the divine realm for tens of thousands of years, but now his soul had returned. What was left for all living beings was the phrase, "If one hears the Tao in the morning, one can die in peace in the evening." Suyu was touched, and his soul sublimated. It was as if he had seen his own path. All of a sudden, one of the fluorescent lights did not dissipate along with his heroic soul. Instead, it converged into a wooden sword and fell into Suyu's head. That was the essence of the demon sword sovereign's life. It was not only his swordsmanship, but also his lifelong comprehension of the sword Tao. Suyu was grateful, and he bowed deeply once again. Foolish living beings. Techniques are still techniques in the end. If you want to become a god, you still have to ascend to the great Tao of heaven and earth. The sinful girl spoke indifferently without any joy or sorrow. Her beautiful eyes gazed into the depths of the gate of time and said, "Long time no see. You're still alive." Yun Yazi stepped out of the gate of time. He looked at the place where the demon sword sovereign had disappeared, and his old eyes were full of loneliness and desolation. When he looked at the sinful girl, he sighed and said, "Thanks to you, all that's left of me now is a remnant soul." Suyu was shocked as he listened. When he first met Yun Yazi, it was in the depths of the ruins. At that time, Yun Yazi was so weak that he was almost negligible and close to death. It turned out that his demise was caused by the sinful girl. All of a sudden, Suyu remembered that the sinful girl had come to the god realm for one person. Now, it seemed that it was not someone else. She must have come for Yun Yazi. The sinful girl looked at Yun Yazi and said, "Even a remnant soul is as terrifying as ever. You can help people achieve enlightenment easily. You are indeed the 9th palace master of the Heavenly Law Palace, the master of the Heavenly Book. You know all the books in the world, grasp the wisdom of the world, and have a clear understanding of the great secrets of the 6 paths. Thanks to your kindness in nurturing me all those years ago, I am where I am today." Suyu was secretly shocked. The Heavenly Law Palace, the master of the Heavenly Book? It was unexpected, but made sense. What surprised him was that the sinful girl had once been nurtured by Yun Yazi. If that was the case, when Yun Yazi was at his peak, he was several times more powerful than the sinful girl. So what if you know all the books in the world? So what if you have the wisdom of the world? So what if you have a clear understanding of the great secrets of the 6 paths? In the end, you can't defeat human nature and have been plotted against until now. Yun Yazi chuckled softly. There was bitterness in his laughter. Suyu's eyes flickered. It sounded like the reason why Yun Yazi was almost defeated by the sinful girl was because he had been plotted against before. So who was it? What kind of plot was it that even the master of the Heavenly Book, who had mastered wisdom, could not guard against? In the past, an ordinary book deity from the god realm, who was left with only a remnant soul, was extremely difficult to deal with. He had put Suyu in life-threatening situations several times. What more the master of the Heavenly Book? The sinful girl was silent for a moment, then said slowly, "You weren't the only one who was plotted against by him. I was also plotted against and sealed for 100 million years." Hearing that, Suyu understood. It was Prince Xiaoyao. Suyu remembered this name deeply. The person who had caused Yun Yazi to be in such dire straits. "So, do you still want to bring me back to the Heavenly Law Palace today?" Yun Yazi asked. The sinful girl nodded without hesitation. "Yes, regardless of whether you were sentenced to leave the Heavenly Law Palace because of the plot. Betrayal is betrayal, and you must accept the punishment of the Heavenly Law." Yun Yazi said slowly, "This is the reason why I betrayed the Heavenly Law Palace. There is only the Heavenly Law and no human nature. Rather than saying that we have comprehended the Heavenly Law, it is more accurate to say that the Heavenly Law is controlling us." When the sinful girl was about to break through the last layer of coin suppression on the surface of her body, Suyu immediately took out the remaining 3 golden coins, 10 silver coins, and 20 bronze coins. 25 seals enveloped the sinful girl and completely suppressed her. Yun Yazi said, "Suyu, you go first. I will hold her off." Suyu said no. The person she wants to capture is you. If you stay, you will fall in her trap. Yun Yazi shook his head and said, You are my disciple. If she captures me, she will never let you go. She may find a way to bring me back to the heavenly law palace, but she may not bring you back." Su Yu understood what he meant. The simplest way to deal with Su Yu was to kill him. After pondering for a moment, Su Yu gritted his teeth and yelled, "Master, wait for me to come back." If he stayed, it would be useless. Not only would he not be able to help the sinful girl, but Yin Yazi would also have to protect him. Instead of that, he might as well look for backup. Flying down the cliff, Su Yu was immediately shocked to smell the deep stench of blood. It was the red-haired corpse. He stood in the air above the cliff. His cold eyes seemed to be looking for prey to devour. Suddenly, he spotted Su Yu and let out a low growl from his throat. Strangely, he did not attack Su Yu. Instead, he turned his head and continued to look for a target. Su Yu's eyes flickered, and his whole body surged with a great fighting spirit. In the darkness, the red-haired corpse suddenly turned his head and stared at Su Yu. His pale eyes were filled with a strange light. Su Yu said, "It really is you, the heaven-fighting divine warrior." The corpse of the divine warrior was none other than the remains of the heaven-fighting divine warrior. No wonder he treated everyone like food, except Su Yu, who let him go. It was because Su Yu had the fighting spirit of the heaven-fighting divine warrior. As he pondered, Su Yu took out a drop of the divine warrior's blood and placed it between his fingers. Su Yu felt a strong gust of wind blowing against his face, and the divine blood between his fingers disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the thick stench of blood came from beside him, as well as the murderous energy that was close at hand. Looking sideways, the red-haired corpse's pale eyes were fixed on Su Yu. He was constantly roaring and screaming, emitting a will of desire. Su Yu was calm and said, "Do you want it? Then come with me." Swish! He soared into the sky and returned to the sky above. There, Yin Yazi and the sinful girl were no longer there. All that was left was a terrifying aura that permeated the entire area. Su Yu's heart tightened. At that moment, a gust of strong wind descended beside Su Yu, saying hurriedly, "Why did you come back?" It was Yin Yazi. However, his solid soul body was transparent and weak, and traces of frost could be seen everywhere. Swish! A beautiful figure floated, and the sinful girl revealed herself. She was still spotless, in stark contrast to the weak Yin Yazi. "You took 10 blows from me with just your soul body. The strength of your soul is far stronger than when you were in the palace of heaven," the sinful girl said indifferently. Yin Yazi laughed self-deprecatingly. "A defeat is a defeat, and there is no excuse for it. I'm willing to follow you back to the palace of heaven, but can you let him go? He and I are only nominal disciples, and he has never received my teachings. He has never told me anything about the palace of heaven, so he will not be a threat." The sinful girl looked at Su Yu and shook her head gently. "You don't have the right to choose. I want to take you away, but I also want to get rid of him." A faint murderous intent appeared in her eyes. Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he instantly took out a large amount of divine blood and sprinkled it on the sinful girl. Without thinking, the sinful girl pointed with her jade-like finger, and the divine blood scattered into nothingness. Roar! As the red-haired corpse pounced on the divine blood, he was attacked by the aftershock of the sinful girl's move. He was immediately enraged, exuding a murderous aura as he roared and pounced on the sinful girl. Su Yu grabbed Yin Yazi and said, "Master, let's go." Yin Yazi was rather weak, but he nodded without hesitation. With a roll of his big sleeves, Su Yu suddenly felt that time and space were in disarray, and he appeared outside the cave in an instant. It took him 10 consecutive days to reach the depths of the cave. Yin Yazi had easily brought him out of the cave. His abilities were so strong that Su Yu was extremely shocked. However, after using this move, Yin Yazi became more than half transparent again. He was extremely weak, and there were faint signs of his demise. Su Yu knew that Yin Yazi had reached his limit. If he continued, he would definitely perish. "Master, take a rest. Leave the rest to me," Su Yu said. Yin Yazi shook his head bitterly. "You are no match for her. No one in the entire God realm is a match for her." That's not necessarily true. Suyu's eyes were filled with a deep brilliance. Master, just wait and see. Inside the abyss, the sinful girl was still untainted by a speck of dust, and a red-haired corpse that was barely breathing lay at her feet. He was on the brink of death, and only a shred of instinct was left to struggle. You've delayed my mission. The sinful girl was expressionless. With a point of her finger, an extreme vortex was condensed. The next moment, the remains of the heaven-fighting divine warrior were completely crushed. However, because of that, the sinful girl was delayed for a full 10 days. She took a step forward and appeared in the square where the red-haired corpse had been. She took another step forward and appeared in the pond of worms. Chapter 1573. On the side of the insect pond, there was a sudden explosion. Countless strange insects were instantly alarmed and rushed out of their nests, pouncing on the sinful girl. The sinful girl frowned slightly. This is troublesome. Her body moved without any wind, rolling up a light mist and blowing over the sky. The fierce, strange insects all died together, and not a single one was left alive. And her eyes never looked at those strange insects from beginning to end. Instead, she stared at the bottom of the insect pond, at a crystal stone inlaid in it. It was a scarlet crystal stone, smooth and round. The explosion of the talisman just now had caused a crack to appear on the crystal stone, and a trace of viscous liquid flowed out of the crystal stone. The sinful girl waved the power of the Pathmaster, and the crack in the crystal stone closed. But it immediately cracked again. As more and more liquid flowed out, there was a trace of pain in the crystal stone, and then a wisp of vitality disappeared. The sinful girl stood next to the insect pond and frowned. That human accidentally destroyed the Tao Ye's egg. He really got into big trouble. She looked up at the top of her head, as if she had sensed something, and there was a rare look of fear on her face. I have to finish this quickly. The next moment, her beautiful figure disappeared without a trace. 2 hours later, in the ancient tomb, the world annihilation dragon had been destroyed day and night by the common people, and it was riddled with holes. The power of the world annihilation dragon was no longer there, and only its dying body was left. Everyone, kill the world annihilation dragon. His flesh, his spine, and his tendons are all treasures of the divine realm. The crowd let out a deafening roar. In this battle, countless people had perished. In front of the ancient tomb, there were already piles of corpses of all kinds of creatures. They were piled up into a mountain, stretching for countless miles. The mysterious crystal mountain of the past had reappeared. Such a great sacrifice had finally been exchanged for the final victory. The world annihilation dragon was also about to die. With hatred, the common people all attacked. The dying world annihilation dragon still raised its head proudly, and its hostility did not diminish. A group of ants, you want to kill me? You will all die. Roar. In a huge dragon roar, the world annihilation dragon spat out a huge black ball from its mouth. The ball contained an amazing power of the world annihilation dragon. It was the dragon pearl of the world annihilation dragon. The power of the world annihilation dragon was the dragon power of the world annihilation dragon. However, because he was sealed by a brush, he could not use the dragon power in it. However, it was still possible to detonate it. Ants, go to hell. The world annihilation dragon roared and activated the dragon ball to explode. But at this moment, a slender hand grasped the dragon pearl. The dragon ball that was about to explode was quickly extinguished. The world annihilation dragon, I haven't seen you for hundreds of millions of years. You have fallen so far, willing to perish together with a group of ordinary creatures. The sinful woman said indifferently. The roaring world annihilation dragon laughed excitedly. Master, you finally broke through the seal. The sinful lady nodded, and like snowflakes falling on the head of the world annihilation dragon, she inserted the dragon pearl into its body and said, "Yes, I'm back. Ha ha ha. I knew Master would break the seal." The world annihilation dragon let out a wild laugh and looked around at the crowd of people who were stunned. He said coldly and playfully, "A group of lowly ants, you are destined to be destroyed." Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. No one dared to attack again. They all stared at the pure white figure. Was that the legendary, sinful woman, the heaven-defying existence that had once destroyed an entire divine realm civilization? Everyone, don't be afraid. She may not really be the sinful woman. A creature summoned up his courage and rushed forward. As soon as he moved, he immediately attracted many creatures to follow him. Everyone launched an attack again. But this time, a total of 100 million creatures suddenly fell like a tide. Like a group of running ants, they were trampled by an invisible giant palm. One by one, they fell, their eyes dimmed, and their souls were destroyed. Their bodies, without exception, turned into ice. In a breath, 100 million creatures had perished. The people behind her felt a chill under their feet. They stared at the sinful woman as if she was a ghost, and no one dared to go forward. Where is Senior Sue? Where is Senior Sue? At this critical moment, they thought of Su Yu, the omnipotent Su Yu. The sinful woman looked down at the crowd and said lightly, "I also want to know, where is he hiding?" Her beautiful eyes glanced around, scanning the divine realm and the lost nation inside and out, but she found nothing. He was hiding. At least that was what she thought. The sinful woman glanced at the crowd and immediately pointed down. A group of figures flew uncontrollably from the crowd to the sinful woman. Among them were the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple, Helm Leader Wuxin, who had given him a bracelet and saved his life, and the two princesses of the mermaid tribe. All of them were people related to Su Yu. The sinful woman did not know what kind of magical power she had used to capture all of them. With a point of her finger, this group of people was bound in the void. Since he is hiding, let him come to me, unless he doesn't care about their fate. Then, the sinful woman clenched her 5 fingers and pulled out the brush from the body of the World Annihilation Dragon. The World Annihilation Dragon was free and let out a carefree and excited roar. He had been wounded, but after regaining his freedom, he recovered in an instant. He stared at the crowd with a grin. "What about them?" The sinful woman said without hesitation, "As you wish." The World Annihilation Dragon let out a deep grin. "Thank you, Master." The black shadow flashed, and the World Annihilation Dragon swooped down, devouring tens of thousands of creatures. The people were finally overcome by panic and fled in all directions. The World Annihilation Dragon followed them playfully and kept eating them. He laughed as if he was taking revenge. "Run. Run as far as you can. Tell your savior to stop hiding. Let him come and save you, ha ha ha." His move was to spread the news of this place to Su Yu's ears. What they did not know was that Su Yu was in a place that no one would have thought of. The Azura Forbidden Lands. He went straight to the outside of the first Forbidden Land, in front of the formation, and left behind the control instrument of the second seal that he had taken away in the past. Behind him, the duck-billed beast said, "Human, have you really decided to open the Azura Forbidden Lands? The Lord Emissary will not forgive you for your previous obstruction." So he did not speak. He turned and left the Azura Forbidden Lands, whispering softly, "This is exactly what I want. The Forbidden Land of 10,000 demons. Your dragon pearl." So you put down the dragon pearl and stared at the epic-making dragon in the void. The epic-making dragon was overjoyed. "Ha ha, you really keep your word." With a flash of his eyes, the epic-making dragon said, "Boy, how is the cultivation of the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll that I taught you?" So you said, "A little bit." The epic-making dragon nodded with satisfaction. "Not bad, not bad. In time, you will definitely reach new heights. I have something to do, so I will take my leave first." So you cupped his fists and said goodbye. The epic-making dragon watched him leave, and the relief on his face disappeared, replaced by a hint of cunning and expectation. "Hee, it seems that there is hope for me to break through. The Red Dust Forbidden Lands." So you stopped in front of a cave shrouded in pink mist. One more step forward, and he would never be able to step out of the mysterious land. So you took out a scroll with a portrait of Xia Jingyu on it. In the calm cave, a pink mist immediately swirled, and a beautiful figure stepped out from within. She cautiously and vigilantly looked around. She was none other than Kai Lin. To be precise, she was Kai Lin, who had fallen into a dream and was being controlled by Lady Hong Chun. "It's you?" Lady Hong Chun was vigilant, still fearful of what she had seen that day. She stared at the portrait in Su Yu's hand, and her pupils flickered violently. "Where did you get this portrait?" "From the end of the god realm that you saw, of course," Su Yu said with a faint smile. Lady Hong Chin's face changed again, and she asked fearfully, "What is your relationship with that lord?" The lord she referred to should be Yun Yazi, but Yun Yazi denied it, saying that she was frightened by the painting. But how could a painting hurt someone? She was seriously injured that day, and it didn't seem fake. "Do you want to see him?" Su Yu asked. Lady Hong Chin shook her head and stared at Su Yu. "What do you want from me?" Su Yu said lightly, "It's very simple. Do me a favor?" "Ha, why?" Lady Hong Chin laughed. "I don't remember owing you a favor." Su Yu said, "Because I can take you back to the great beginning realm." Lady Hong Chin's expression froze and gradually became serious. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." "Well, what do you need my help with?" Su Yu smiled mysteriously. After leaving the Forbidden Land, Su Yu looked at the ancient tomb. In the 10 days since he left the cave, Su Yu had been going back and forth between the 3 Forbidden Lands, meeting many fleeing creatures and learning a lot of information. As expected, Su Yu said leisurely as he stood on the top of a mountain. The sinful lady's act of holding people hostage was already within Su Yu's expectations. He just didn't expect her to be so powerful that within the divine realm, all those who were related to her were captured. "Are you going back?" Yun Yazi asked. Su Yu nodded. "I didn't kill them, but they died because of me. If you go back, will she let them go?" Yun Yazi tried to persuade Su Yu. Su Yu shook his head. "Whether I go back or not, the sinful lady won't let them go, I understand." He was not that simple, nor was he that childish. "But I have to go. 100 million years of grievances should finally be settled in my time," Su Yu said leisurely. He turned into a breeze, invisible and formless. The ancient tomb. 5 days passed. This place had long since become a dead land, with the smell of dead bodies everywhere. A demonic dragon wandered among the corpses, bored. A snow fairy was sitting cross-legged in the air. The demonic dragon looked at the captive creatures and said coldly, "5 days have passed. If the human surnamed Su had the guts to come, he would have come long ago. Master, why waste time? Kill them all, and we will search the divine realm and the lost nation." The sinful lady shook her head lightly. "There is not much time to search. The human race is full of cowards. They fight fiercely against their enemies, but they are as cowardly as sheep against outsiders. In the list of the 10,000 clans, they are the lowest 9th-class inferior race." The demonic dragon said disdainfully, "With the master here and me here, I don't believe that the mere human race would dare to come." The sinful lady opened her eyes and looked thoughtful. "What you said is not unreasonable. The human race, in the great beginning realm, is also an inferior race. However, even among the human race, there are a few superior ones, such as the Pathmaster of the human race, the great Emperor Xinyuan, and Su Yu, who dares to come here." She slowly got up and stared in a certain direction. Chapter 1574. Whoosh! Su Yu's silver hair fluttered in the wind, and the crown on his head shone brilliantly. His eyes were clear and calm as he stared at the two. "I'm here." "Release him," Su Yu said calmly. Sinful girl said indifferently, "Just like your master, you don't have the right to choose before me." The next moment, Su Yu's surroundings tightened, and his whole body was strangely restrained. He couldn't move at all. The sinful woman swept her gaze over him and restrained her gaze. She said, "You're very smart. You found some power to negotiate for yourself." Yin Yazi was not with him. Su Yu had hidden him. "That's why I said that you should release him," Su Yu said indifferently. The World Annihilation Dragon sneered, "Stupid creature, do you think you can threaten our master? After killing them, I'll forcefully search your soul. The result will be the same." With a sweep of his dragon tail, the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple and the others were smashed to pieces. With a pop, the dragon's tail struck empty air. It was the sinful girl. She raised her jade-like finger and teleported them away. The shackles on their bodies were released one after another. Master you. The World Annihilation Dragon was a little surprised and confused. Could it be that Master was going to compromise with a puny human? The sinful lady said indifferently, I've always been clear about rewards and punishments. Since you dared to come, you deserve a reward. Your people have already been released, and you. The sinful woman's gaze was deep and profound as she penetrated Su Yu's soul and searched his soul. But suddenly, the sinful girl's eyes narrowed, and she said, the sole defense of the heavenly book temple master? No wonder you dare to come. As it turned out, Su Yu had already anticipated that he would be searched. Hence, he had asked Yun Yazi for help, using his powerful soul energy to cover him with a layer of defense. Although sinful girl was strong, she might not be able to compare to Yun Yazi in the path of the soul. So you're saying that I need to torture you? The sinful woman pointed her jade finger in front of her, as if she was thinking. Su Yu shook his head. You don't have to. If you want to find Yun Yazi, you can come with me. Of course, this dragon will have to come with you. The sinful lady looked at the many creatures that had just been released and seemed to understand something. Are you worried that I'll go back on my word? So you want to lure me away? Or are you trying to lure me into a dangerous situation? Su Yu wore an indifferent smile. Then, in order to capture Yun Yazi, do you dare to take the risk? Suddenly, the sinful lady laughed, and her voice was extremely pleasant to the ears. Hee hee, it has been a long time since a living being dared to speak to me like this. As a reward, I'll go with you. Do as you please was a great confidence, and she had the qualifications to be so confident. The World Annihilation Dragon stared at Su Yu with murderous intent. Master, why did you give in to him? I have countless interrogation methods. Even if the divine warriors of heaven and earth were to fall into my hands, they would not be able to withstand it and would definitely reveal the truth. Sinful girl said slowly, despair is the best method of interrogation. Besides, we don't have time to interrogate them. The sinful girl raised her head to look at the sky. In the depths of the void that others couldn't see, there was a pair of dark and greedy eyes that looked down on them in a mocking manner. That monster had awakened. The next moment, Azura Forbidden Land. The first layer of the seal had been completely undone. Countless Shura creatures were wandering around, looking for prey. Their arrival undoubtedly caused the Azura creatures to rise up and attack them. The sinful lady just smiled indifferently and took a step forward. With her, as the center, the Shura creatures within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles were all frozen and died on the spot. She looked back at Su Yu and said, that's all. Su Yu did not say a word. He stepped on the corpses of the Shura creatures in the first layer of the seal and came to the depths of the seal. A few days ago, the seal that Su Yu had left behind had long since disappeared. The seal that had been sealed for a long time had been unlocked as expected. A level 3 black dragon danced excitedly, swallowing the rich power of Azura. There were as many as tens of thousands of them. These were the dragon-shaped creatures that Su Yu had seen when he passed by the Azura Forbidden Land that day. The World Annihilation Dragon laughed. A group of ants. The World Annihilation Dragon spat out a dragon's breath, burying many of the dragons. Roar. From the depths of the seal, there were several roars of extremely strong breaths. Su Yu's eyes lit up slightly. The roar was not weak. It should be at the level of a Star River overlord. Sure enough, the dragon's breath disappeared, and 3 golden dragon shadows shot out like lightning. They spat out powerful dragon's breath at each other, sweeping the World Annihilation Dragon's breath back. The World Annihilation Dragon was stunned and sneered contemptuously. They're just a little bigger than ants. He swung his huge dragon tail, like a black thunder cutting through the sky. The 3 golden dragons were smashed in an instant, and their bodies and souls were destroyed. Licking the dragon blood that fell from the corner of his mouth, the World Annihilation Dragon stared at Su Yu with pity. That's all. Su Yu was silent. In his mind, he remembered that the bull-headed creature with a strange horn on its head and the giant of the bitter sea were both Shura messengers. He took a few steps forward and came to the depths of the second layer of the seal. Looking from afar, there was a golden ocean in the depths, undulating with waves. Looking closely, it sent chills down one's spine. It was not an ocean, but as many as 10,000 golden dragons. They gathered together, as if summoned, and were bombarding a palm print in the depths of a seal with all their might. The palm print was clear, and it seemed to have been imprinted not long ago. It was filled with extremely rich wizard power, the power of the wizard ancestor. Suyu immediately recognized that it should be the last layer of the core seal of the Azura Forbidden Lands. What was sealed in it was unknown. However, it was conceivable that the second layer of the seal had sealed a total of 10,000 golden dragons at the level of the Star River Overlord. So the third layer of the seal was unimaginable. In the center of the Golden Ocean, there were three special existences. One was a monster with two silver-white horns on his head. He was 8 feet long and exuded a very strong breath, superior to many golden dragons. His strength was strong enough to reach the peak of the Overlord. He was the bull-headed monster. Beside him, there was a person Suyu was quite familiar with. Princess Yunxia. She stood on the shoulder of the bull-headed monster, holding the seal control artifact left by Suyu in her hand, and released the golden dragons that were sealed one by one. In this way, tens of thousands of golden dragons were gathered together to destroy the seal. Suddenly, the bull-headed monster turned and stared at them from afar. Princess Yunxia also looked over. She did not know the sinful girl and the world annihilation dragon, but she would never forget Suyu even if he turned into ashes. Suyu, it's you. Princess Yunxia clenched her silver teeth, and her eyes exuded unforgettable hatred. Golden Dragon, go, destroy her. The bull-headed monster wanted to stop her, but it was too late. 10 golden dragons flew over, and the ferocity of the Overlord level was enough to frighten any creature to death. The world annihilation dragon sneered. Suyu, you have a lot of enemies. Suyu just smiled. Not only did he not intend to make a move, but he also crossed his arms and looked like he was watching a good show. It was as if he was not the one who was going to be destroyed. The world annihilation dragon was stunned, and it took him a while to recover. If he died, who would tell them where Yun Yazi was hiding? Suyu. The world annihilation dragon's eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. Suyu was unmoved, and he stood there with a faint smile. The world annihilation dragon was extremely reluctant to stop the golden dragon for Suyu. Princess Yunxiao warned him coldly, "No matter who you are, if you help Suyu, you will be the enemy of the Xianming Path Master." The world annihilation dragon, who was already angry, was warned by a creature with low cultivation like Princess Yunxia. He became even more furious and laughed angrily. "Who does the Xianming Pathmaster think he is? Even in front of me, you have to respect me. Get lost." The world annihilation dragon roared, and the dragon's roar formed a shock wave, containing the pure power of the world annihilation dragon. The tyrannical 10 golden dragons were caught off guard and were shattered by the shock wave, gradually dissipating like light and shadows. Princess Yunxia was extremely angry and glared at Suyu. "I should have known that you had bad intentions when you left the seal control artifact. You have long calculated that we are now at the most critical moment to break the level 3 seal, right?" After years of dealing with Suyu, Princess Yunxia had a psychological shadow of Suyu's ability to calculate. She took it for granted that the world annihilation dragon and this mysterious woman in white were deliberately arranged by Suyu. His unusual initiative to return the control artifact was seen by Princess Yunxia as a malicious scheme. Suyu shrugged indifferently, making it difficult to figure out what he was thinking, giving people a sense of inscrutability. In fact, Suyu had never set foot in the second seal. How could he know that there were so many terrible golden dragons here? How could it be considered a scheme? He came here for another purpose. "Suyu, if I don't destroy you, I swear I am not a human," Princess Yunxia scolded. The silver-horned, bull-headed monster's eyes were cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Miss Yunxia, don't be agitated. Our top priority is to break the last seal as soon as possible and release the Lord." Princess Yunxia shook her head coldly. "You don't understand. This man's scheming is far beyond your imagination. If we let him go, I'm afraid we will all be destroyed, let alone release the Lord. In this regard, Princess Yunxia had an unusually positive attitude, which surprised the silver-horned bull-headed monster. Princess Yunxia meant a lot to the Xianming Pathmaster. She was the most beloved woman of the Xianming Pathmaster in the past. She accompanied the Xianming Pathmaster all year round, and her knowledge was impeccable. Why would such a woman be so afraid of a human junior? Okay, but I can only use 50 of them. The seal is about to be broken, and I can't divert too much energy, the silver-horned bull-headed monster said. 50 will be enough. Consort Yunxia glared at Su Yu, determined to kill him. With a swoosh, Princess Yunxia jumped on a golden dragon, followed by 49 golden dragons. They roared and rushed forward. The World Annihilation Dragon snorted coldly, and for the first time, there was a trace of seriousness in his huge dragon eyes. With so many golden dragons around, he felt some pressure. He looked at the sinful lady, but found that her eyes were staring at the depths of the third seal, as if she was looking at something. In desperation, the World Annihilation Dragon had a fight on his own. The power of the World Annihilation Dragon engulfed and destroyed the golden dragons one by one. But there were also golden dragons with the power of Azura that scratched the World Annihilation Dragon. Although he was strong and could fight many at once, it was difficult to win. After a round of fighting, the ground was covered with the bodies of the golden dragons, but the World Annihilation Dragon was also wounded. Princess Yunxia stood on the only remaining golden dragon, staring at Su Yu with a sullen face. Good, good. I thought that by opening the second seal and awakening the golden dragons, I could easily crush you. I didn't expect you to find such a powerful pawn. Chapter 1575. Roar. With a roar, the World Annihilation Dragon roared, carrying the power of destruction, and killed Princess Yunxia and the remaining golden dragon. But at this moment, in the third layer of the seal, a great aura was transmitted, and a chain of rules penetrated the seal and descended into the second layer. The attack of the World Annihilation Dragon was shattered by the chain of the great path that suddenly appeared. For the sake of me, how about letting her go? A shadow forcibly penetrated the seal and appeared in the second layer. It was a creature surrounded by gray fog, and its figure could not be seen clearly. Only a pair of eyes that had experienced countless years of vicissitudes could be seen. The World Annihilation Dragon's pupils shrank, and he said in a low voice, Xianming Path Master. On the other hand, Princess Yunxia was crying with joy. 2 lines of tears rolled down her cheeks, and she said, My lord, I can finally see you again. At this moment, her dream for countless years had finally come true. Even if she had to use all the vicious and cruel methods, she would not hesitate to achieve it. Across the seal, the projection of the Xianming Pathmaster's eyes were full of deep love and apology. Yunxia, I have made you suffer. You have endured hundreds of millions of years of loneliness in vain. I have no regrets. Princess Yunxia's face was full of tears, and her love was deep. The two of them looked at each other in the isolation seal, and it was touching. Yunxia, I will be free soon. Wait for me. The Xianming Pathmaster said affectionately, and the third layer of the seal trembled violently. The Xianming Pathmaster also began to attack the seal from the inside out. A suffocating power of Azura gradually permeated. Princess Yunxia's eyes were full of anticipation and excitement. When she glanced at Su Yu, she could not help but show a proud and cold expression. Su Yu, it seems that the pawn you found did not play as well as you thought. Su Yu said nothing, and his expression was calm and composed. What? You have nothing to say, or do you dare not say it? Are you afraid that I will retaliate and make you suffer? Princess Yunxia raised her eyebrows, and her hatred was abnormally satisfied. Unfortunately, it is too late. You must pay for what you have done to me with your blood. Your pawns will be useless in front of the Xianming Pathmaster. At this moment, Su Yu finally opened his mouth and calmly said, You seem to think that I will definitely die before you. Isn't it? Princess Yunxia sneered, her eyes full of mockery. Su Yu shook his head and said, Of course not. A beam of wine-red light shot out from Su Yu's eyes and enveloped Princess Yunxia. She was caught off guard and teleported in front of Su Yu. The silver-horned Minotaur was shocked. "How dare you? Immediately release Yunxia." The golden dragon roared and charged over as well. No one would have thought that Su Yu would dare to hold Princess Yunxia hostage in front of the Xianming Pathmaster. The third layer of the seal suddenly fell silent. A calm but gloomy voice floated over. "Human, I'll give you one chance. Let her go." Su Yu calmly looked at the third layer of the seal and asked, "Then what? Under the instigation of this evil woman, you killed me?" The seal was silent for a long time. Then a solemn voice floated over. "I, the Xianming Pathmaster, can swear that as long as you let her go, the past grievances between you and her will be written off. I will never pursue you again." To be able to make a Pathmaster compromise, it showed how important Princess Yunxia was to the Xianming Pathmaster. The price of writing off all grievances was also very tempting, because Su Yu's original ending was certain death. Giving him a chance to live was already a great benevolence of the Xianming Pathmaster. However, Su Yu gently shook his head. "I have the right to forgive the grievances between me and her, not you." The Xianming Pathmaster's tone was like a gift, as if the past grievances were all caused by Su Yu. He did not pursue the past, but instead blamed Su Yu as the culprit. With a silver sword in hand, Su Yu stabbed it into the back of the Xianming Pathmaster. "Wait!" The Xianming Pathmaster dissuaded, his tone urgent. "Human, please, for the sake of our deep friendship, let her go. I will remember this kindness in my heart." Deep friendship? Su Yu shook his head coldly, and his eyes became cold and sharp. Because of the deep friendship, she can control the demon race and eat the creatures of the god realm alive. Because of the deep friendship, she will do whatever it takes, even if she has to use vicious means. Because of the deep friendship between you, others are dirt, ants, and all deserve to die. You may have touched others, but can you touch those creatures who were killed by her evil deeds? Su Yu's eyes were cold. With a flip of his wrist, a silver sword pierced through Princess Yunxia's chest and back. With a muffled groan, Princess Yunxia's eyes were still full of resentment. With blood in her mouth, she screamed viciously, "My lord, don't beg him, just avenge me." Su Yu was indifferent. With a shake of his palm, the silver sword burst with destructive thunder, completely destroying Princess Yunxia, leaving not even a trace of dust. The grievances between the two of them for many years finally came to an end. "No!" Inside the seal, there was a roar that shook the sky. The seal, which had been sealed for countless years, suffered an extreme destructive attack. With a cracking sound, several cracks appeared. A wisp of profound azura chain, which was as powerful as the heavenly law, flew out from within the chain and suppressed Su Yu. Su Yu could not resist the attack of the Pathmaster, even if he used all his divine skills. The World Annihilation Dragon's pupils shrank, and he hurriedly retreated. He said angrily, "Human, are you crazy?" He never thought that Su Yu would dare to kill his beloved woman in front of the Xianming Pathmaster. With such deep hatred, it would be strange if the Xianming Pathmaster did not launch a life-and-death hunt. However, Su Yu's expression was calm, and he wore a leisurely expression. Swoosh! At the moment it was about to be destroyed, a beautiful figure stood in front of him and repelled the chains of laws. "Sinful girl, do you want to be my enemy?" Inside the seal, the Xianming Pathmaster's angry roar came. The sinful girl said lightly, "First, without my permission, he can't die. Second, you are not qualified to be my enemy." Yunxia! The Xianming Pathmaster roared, and the seal collapsed in an instant. A majestic man surrounded by the great path rules exuded a strong aura that could destroy all living beings. Under that aura, 10,000 golden dragons prostrated on the ground at the same time, wailing. It seemed that they could not bear the suppression of the powerful chain of rules. Su Yu and the World Annihilation Dragon were the same. They felt the pressure of destruction, especially Su Yu, who was under even more pressure. He felt that he would be destroyed in an instant. At this moment, a majestic aura of the heavenly law enveloped Su Yu and the world annihilation dragon. It was the sinful girl. She easily separated a trace of the great path rules and dissolved the oppressive aura of the Xianming Path Master. Sinful girl, do you really want to fall out with me for a small human? The Xianming Path Master roared angrily. His eyes were wide open and full of murderous intent. The sinful girl was unperturbed. Her snow-white eyes were calm. I'll say it again. Without my permission, he cannot die. The Xianming Path Master gritted his teeth and struggled for a long time. He slowly retreated and chose to endure. However, his eyes were fixed on Su Yu. Needless to say, he would hunt Su Yu down until he died. He did not believe that the sinful girl would always stay by Su Yu's side. Who gave you permission to leave? However, the sinful girl suddenly spoke. The Xianming Path Master stopped in his tracks and said angrily, "What else do you want?" The sinful girl said calmly, "Before my task is completed, I will not allow anyone to get in my way. You can either follow me or die now." She was worried that the Xianming Path Master would kill Su Yu with a sneak attack and lose track of Yun Yazi. The Xianming Path Master laughed angrily. "Oh, sinful girl, do you really think that I am a Path Master? Fine, let this Tao Lord see how you'll kill me right now." The sinful girl said indifferently, "Then I will fulfill your wish." She weaved her hands together, and the sound of chains colliding could be heard. Hundreds of chains densely surrounded the sky. Su Yu's eyes flashed. This was the first time that the sinful girl had used her path. The Xianming Path Master also showed his soul-stirring path of Azura. Dark gray chains hovered in the sky like giant dragons. Azura rules. The Xianming Path Master's eyes were filled with supreme divine power. Dark gray chains danced wildly and bombarded the place. Everywhere he passed was transformed into an Azura hell. Anyone who fell into hell would be tortured by the power of Azura forever. They would never die. It was the ultimate torture. The sinful girl's eyes were calm. She did not even look at the chains of rules. She weaved her hands together and pointed at the sky. Her red lips opened slightly, and her voice was like the sound of nature. "I seal." Crack. Her chains of rules were snow-white and emitted boundless cold air. They swept across and collided with the chains of the Xianming Path Master. Rumble. It was as if heaven and earth were collapsing. The sky turned blood-red as if something had been pierced through. Immediately after that, a shocking scene appeared. The chains of the Xianming Path Master were like paper in front of the sinful girl's chains. They shattered upon impact. Puff! The chains of rules were broken. The Xianming Path Master spat out a mouthful of divine blood. He stared at the sinful girl in shock. His eyes were filled with fear. You have... It's enough that you know. You don't have to say it out loud." The sinful girl said lightly. A snow-white chain flashed over the top of her head. The next moment, it pierced through the chest of the Xianming Path Master. His body quickly stiffened and turned into a snow-white statue. Finally, it turned into fluorescent crystal fragments and disappeared. A dignified Path Master was killed just like that. They were both Path Masters, but the difference between the Xianming Path Master and the sinful girl was like heaven and earth. Or rather, the words that the Xianming Path Master did not finish before his death had a hidden meaning. The sinful girl calmly grabbed the crystal fragments. A string of broken chains could be seen clearly. She threw it to the world annihilation dragon behind her. Refine it again to make up for the lost chain fragment. The world annihilation dragon was ecstatic. He was so excited that he spoke incoherently. "Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master." Then, the sinful girl stopped and turned to look at Su Yu. Her expression was still calm, as if she was not the one who had just killed a Path Master. "So, is there any other dangerous place that I need to go to?" the sinful girl asked leisurely. Su Yu's face was expressionless, but his heart was filled with fear. Even a Tao Lord was easily crushed, so who else could stop her? However, Su Yu was calm. His eyes were filled with a fierce light. "If you dare to come, then come.